Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Holographic and today we're reading ReZero Arc 5 chapters 31 through 33. I'm not going to read like that for the rest of this. Hello everyone and welcome back to the stream. How's everybody doing today? We're going to kick things right off with chapter 31, but first we're going to get introduced with the cast. There are a few people that are missing today, so we are covering a few roles, and yeah, let's get right into it. I know I'm late. You can all shut up. Here we go. Jace.
Oh, is it me?
Yes.
Hello, I'm Jace. I'm the sound director, and I think you all can guess by now what role I'm playing.
Pog.
Hello, everybody. Bible. Hi, my name is Tealdi. I'll be reading for Krush today. Hopefully not like that, though, so yay.
Fingers crossed.
Oh, is it me now?
It is.
Hello everyone. I am Gold. I'm playing Fairy Chan today, for sure. Anyways, up next is
Super, and I'll be playing Garth.
Hello everyone, my name is Holographic and I'll be playing Julius.
Happy morning, friends. My name is Nugget, and I'm Mimi.
Hello, I'm Giga Void 4, and instead of being Beatrice, I'll be your narrator.
I suppose.
Hi, I'm Wolf. Wolfclaw. Yeah, that's me. I'm voicing Subaru and shit. Also, Hollow, mate, you don't have the Discord overlay on.
It's on.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm looking
there
at
it is.
OBS. Yes.
Okay, you fixed it. Well done.
No, I just had it turned off, like, since we did our last stream. It's been there,
Dumb.
but yeah.
Hi, I'm Kyles. I'm Riala today. I'm also subbing in for Alias, Anastasia, and Hataro. Yeah.
Oh
hi.
shit, that's right. I'm playing Tivy. Hi.
Tivy.
Hey, I'm the Lightning Eagle, and I'm playing Dogman. Bark, bark, wolf, wolf.
Nice.
Dago.
Hi, I'm Wilhelm, and I'll be playing the Eldritch Horror in the background for this stream. Roar.
Okay. So for those of you looking to follow along with us, we are going to be reading a slightly revised version of chapters 31 through 33. I don't think Fanta's released them yet, so you can follow along with the Witch Cult translation links that are in the description. But yeah, is there pretty much anything else we need to cover? You guys just want to jump right into these readings. We're going to be doing a total of 3 chapters today. Cast, hello?
Let's go.
Hello?
Hi, your cast is here, and we'd just like to say hi.
Oh my god.
Stop being a
Sorry,
simp.
what did you ask us, Hollow? I did not hear.
Oh, am I, like, quiet on Discord then?
No, I just didn't
No,
hear.
you,
you.
no, you're just
okay,
irrelevant.
We're being praised.
I'm just Alright, Wolf. I asked if there's anything you guys want to say before we get right into these readings.
No, I don't have anything to say. I hope that we all have fun today.
If you guys notice,
This
there's a new
stream was
donation goal.
sponsored
It's
by
sponsored by
Rain
Capella. Alright.
Meat
Cool.
Creatures.
Donate, you meat
Oh,
creatures.
meat creatures.
Wilhelm just cut.
You're all nothing. But a bunch of
Vegeta! There's
creatures.
meat Okay, we're not doing this. Alright.
We're doing it.
I just realized I'm the only narrator in here. Oh boy.
Okay, so Kiki, you're narrating this chapter, I believe?
I
suppose.
I don't think the other. Yeah, I don't think the other narrators
None
are
of
here.
the other
so-
narrators are here,
so-
nope. Also, just a fair warning for the chat, this is going to be one of the longer chapters. It has a total word count of around 19,000. So,
Oh boy.
you'll do great. You'll do great, Kiki. The
Let me know if you need help.
If you need to
with
tap
narration.
out, I'm here.
Yeah, if you
Okay.
pretty much this chapter is doesn't involve a lot of us. So if you need to tap out, just let us know in chat. We can do a swap out. I think there's an
Okay.
asterisk break here too, so that can work. We did it last time seamlessly. All right. So yeah, buckle up and let's get ready, everyone, for ReZero Arc 5.
Arc 5, Chapter 31, The Cost of a Mistake.
I got it.
Noisy, stop saying that.
The next morning, Garfield, looking to be in a rather poor state, walked the streets with Mimi. Giggling, Mimi touched the chest of her robe, which were stained with Garfield's tears and saliva. The stench was such that it caused physical pain to Garfield's nose. To Mimi, who had the same sharp sense of smell, that stench must have been unbearable, but upon hearing Garfield's advice to wash it, she replied,
It's fine. After returning to the hotel, I can get a change of clothes. The lady will be really mad that I didn't go back last night. Oh, and Hitaro and Tivi too!
My bad.
Mimi isn't worried about it. Mimi will only say that Garf's a very good boy when he's sobbing and crying.
Mimi replied with an innocent smile to Garfield's weak apology. On the previous night, Garfield had both reunited and shared a second farewell with his mother. Upon being branded by a series of wounds, he had shamefully ended up crying into Mimi's chest on a rooftop. And, even more embarrassingly, the sobbing had sapped his strength so much that he had ended up falling asleep. The next morning, while he was still sleeping on Mimi's lap, he was woken up by a loud voice that could be heard all over the city. Garfield attempted to maintain his composure, but it was easily noticeable that he was embarrassed around Mimi, who in turn kept being her normal self. Having been unable to come up with an excuse, he was chewed out by the owner of the building on top, of which he was spent the night, and they went on their way home.
Do you feel better?
It's... you could say, something like that.
It's like that, right?
Yeah, like that.
Unable to voice his true gratitude, Garfield frowned. However, Mimi's attitude did not change because of his lack of words. He recalled last night, when Mimi had blurted out that she was interested in him. Involuntarily, his eyes followed Mimi's figure. Before, he had thought that Mimi was just tagging along with him, feeling a sense of kinship due to their shared non-human heritage. But she unexpectedly been following him with romantic intent. And, even having given her confession, she acted the same as she always had. Even though he'd done the same with Ram, as soon as the tables were flipped, he felt thrown off. Now, as the recipient of those feelings, Garfield caught a glimpse of yet another shameful weakness.
Well, what should we do this morning? Go to your mother and see her?
His thoughts having been sidetracked, Garfield jumped in surprise, both at the suddenness of Mimi's words and their actual content.
Wait, what? Why'd we go see her?
Because Riala's Garf's mother, right? So you should talk properly, right?
This midget really can't read between the lines.
Mimi seemed to be unaware of the subtleties of their relationship, despite having spotted the most important part of their relationship with pure instinct. He was put in a difficult position, unable to answer questions about whether they were family or not. Garfield immediately realized it was useless to try to explain, and then gave up. And he realized that that was yet another problem.
It's... fine. There's no need to let her know that my amazing self's her son.
Is that really okay?
Yeah. I gotta think about whether I should tell Sis.
Frederica was clever. After the initial shock and confusion passed, she would certainly come to the same conclusion as Garfield, even faster than he had. And even if she didn't reach the same conclusion as he did, she still had the right to know of their mother's survival. But would it be right to have her experience the same suffering as he did?
There's still time before making a decision.
That's right. That's really hard. Mimi doesn't know her mom either, so Mimi gets it.
Stuff about moms. You understand?
His ears trembling at Mimi's unexpected statement, Garfield replied back with a question. Mimi only nodded with a relaxed attitude, prefacing with,
Yep. Mimi, Hitaro, and Tivi never knew Mom and Dad. They probably thought, triplets, raising a super big family is too hard. So they left us somewhere. Then we were picked up by the captain, so he's family and Lady's family too.
So, you really do have a big family.
Without knowing the reason, he suddenly felt that the atmosphere had relaxed as he stroked Mimi's head. At that moment,
Ah!
Mimi quickly brushed aside his hand and leapt away. Garfield stared eyes wide open at her reddened face as she turned her back to him, emitting a while rubbing her head.
For some reason, ever since yesterday, getting too close to Garp feels weird.
Right, sorry. Do ya want my amazing self to leave?
I don't want that either. Something not too close and not too far feels the best.
She scrambled next to him with small steps, stopping in a place outside of his reach. Garfield frowned, completely puzzled, as Mimi gave her usual smile. Just now, his own face seemed to tingle with a faint redness.
Hey! Soiree! That's the soiree! That's the soiree!
Yeah, sure.
As if in a hurry to change the topic, Mimi withdrew the candy bag from her pocket. That was what Riala had given Mimi last night, before they parted ways. Momentarily, a pain-like numbness flowed through his chest as Mimi put candy on his open palm. He snorted at the aroma, wafting gently towards his nose. That soiree was a baked sweet, made by baking bread dough with sweet condiments in it, stuffed with cream and red bean paste inside. There were 2 large round soirees in the box, one each for Mimi and Garfield, which would serve as their breakfast.
Yay! It's sweet! Good! Delicious! Super delicious!
Ah, it's delicious!
Garfield voiced his agreement to Mimi's loud applause. It was slightly sweet, but not overwhelmingly sugary, and the dough was fluffy and soft. If consumed shortly after being baked, it would have been even more delicious. Or was that his mother's specialty? In that case, Garfield could have had more chance to taste it.
Arf?
This isn't really like my amazing self. Yeah.
At Mimi's concern, Garfield shoved those wishful thoughts away and walked away. Turning his back to the place where his mother lived, he returned his thoughts to his friends, who should be waiting for him. Like Mimi, Garfield has stayed out without permission. Because of that, he would certainly be severely scolded.
Hello? Hello? Is this okay? Can everyone hear? Meet creatures who can hear. Good for you. Worthless meat who can't. Go fester and die. That'd be a huge help for me.
Just having taken a short step forward, a voice suddenly assaulted Garfield's and Mimi's eardrums. The two glanced at each other and looked up to the sky at the same time. The voice seemed that it had boomed from the heavens.
That voice sounds like...
Well. Was there any idiot who died from the shock right now? If not, well, it doesn't really matter. But if there's anyone brave enough to dare to ignore this lovely lady, then my mood will be ruined.
Ignoring Garfield's emotions, the voice kept speaking at an annoying volume. The other people walking on that matinal cityscape all looked up at the sky, dumbfounded like Garfield. It felt like a shockingly loud voice, but that conclusion would be wrong. Garfield, possessing a sense of hearing different from a regular human's, could tell that this voice was not a loud one coming from one source. Rather, it permeated the entire city, spreading the way in Echowood. However, knowing that would not yield any answers to his questions, All he knew was that
You boring meat creatures do nothing but ruin my mood. There's no value here at all. You're all just garbage, garbage, garbage. If all you're thinking of doing is having that disgusting breath, thinking those disgusting thoughts and drooling your way through life, it'd be much better if you just plunged your head into a ditch and drowned. Please go die soon. Please, I beg you.
the owner of this voice had the vilest of souls.
What kind of joke is this? Stop fucking around!
Garf, I keep feeling this super unpleasant.
As Garfield cursed in irritation, Mimi showed an anxious expression. Faced with her attitude, Garfield traced the scar on his forehead, clicking his fangs. That expression did not suit her. That expression, he did not want to see it from her.
Well then, since the big dough-rotted meat creatures can't seem to figure it out, I'll explain it. I have control of the radio. Meaning.
Get on with it. What's the meaning?
No, we have control of this city hall, alright? By the way, do you know those control towers at the edge of the city? Those are also ours now.
Control towers. Are those the ones Autobro talked about?
Regardless of whether the owner of that voice was telling the truth, Garfield felt that threat, holding his breath. Before and after arriving at the city, he had heard about Pristella's structure from Otto. As the Watergate city, Pristella had water running all around it, and once had a role as a trap meant for a very powerful fiend, and that function was still operable. And the controls towers located north, south, east, and west of the city allowed control of the operation of the waterway. If those were now in control of this host, who possessed the most vile character possible, it meant that the population of the entire city had been taken hostage. Reaching the same conclusion as Garfield, panic and anxiety began to spread through the civilians. Everyone screamed in dread, and the city echoed loud, toxic, joyful laughter.
By now, at this moment, only now are you realizing that you're all going to be decimated. It's shocking how brainless you all are. It's too much for me. Oh, garbage! Oh, this won't do. I'm sorry. If I go on any longer without giving my name, you're all going to try running away from reality, right? Why don't you allow this gentle and benevolent lady to teach you what's real in a very simple way?
In a city of panic, Garfield held Mimi's hand tightly, then listened carefully to what the voice was saying.
I am the Saint Archbishop of the Witch Cult, representing lust!
Which cult?
Capella Emerata Lazinica-sama! Respect me, worship me, then cry and beg and die tragically like worms, you rotten slabs of meat!
Upon hearing the broadcast, Garfield was forced to make a choice. Although the broadcast of the self-proclaimed witch cultist had induced panic, the actions of the citizens of Pristella were very orderly. Even in that turmoil, they had kept emergency procedures in mind and fled to the nearest shelter. People passing by had attempted to guide Garfield and Mimi to a shelter. However, they had refused to take their lead and instead chose to go elsewhere immediately. However, that had led Garfield to make yet another choice. And the result of that choice...
Gorgeous son!
In the shelter he had arrived at, Riala had run towards Garfield, seeing him, relieved to find an acquaintance. Garfield endured the pain in his heart, and managed to turn his face to her. That was the result of his choice. From the very moment Garfield had refused to be led by a nearby shelter, he was forced into a decision. He had opted between going back to where he should be, alongside Amelia and Subaru, or to go out of his way to make sure that his mother was safe, even after deciding to part with her for good. Rationally, Garfield knew he should have immediately returned to Amelia and the others. Even so, he had told himself that since this shelter was relatively near where he was right after hearing the broadcast, he could afford to check on her safety.
I'm glad that Mimi-san is fine as well. That broadcast had me worried.
Nothing's happened to us. The soiree was delicious. Thanks for the feast.
Ah, that's good. I'm glad it was to your taste.
And Mimi had not objected to any of Garfield's choices and followed along. Of course, she had wanted to return to Anastasia and her younger brothers. To her, Riala was a stranger, and she had no real obligation to go and check on her safety. While listening to his own excuse, Garfield, having finally confirmed Riala's safety, was free to leave. He needs to return to Amelia's side immediately and come up with a plan. If the name of the witch cult were to appear, Garfield would protect Amelia. That was the manly promise he had made with Subaru, one which he would absolutely never break. Even if he could not protect himself as a tiger, he could never forget that he was a man.
It looks like everyone's good. So my amazing self will...
Wait, Gorgeous-san, have you...
As Garfield prepared to leave, Riala's timid murmurs caught his ears. Upon seeing Garfield frown at this unusual attitude, she quietly continued.
Have you seen my children yet? They left early this morning, and they're not in this shelter.
Huh?
Hurriedly looking up, Garfield scanned his surroundings. However, the figures he saw were nowhere in sight. The visages of his siblings were not in this place.
Even my husband... No, never mind. I said something superfluous.
What's up? My amazing self will be bothered if you try to hide anything now.
The broadcast came from the city hall. My husband should be going to his job at the city hall. So if something happened there...
The city hall was a tall building at the center of Prestella. During the broadcast, the Sin Archbishop had announced they had seized the city hall, a place that supposedly maintained the operation of the city. Most likely, Garrick was there. Garfield's heart quickened, and he felt like he was going to collapse from how strongly it pounded. Garrick, who was at the most dangerous place, and his missing brother and sister, confirming Riala's safety had led him to learn that her family was in danger.
Captain, Amelia-sama.
Their faces, as well as Otto's and Beatrice's, flashed through Garfield's mind. He must return to those people and become their strength. But, as if tailgating that idea, the faces of his siblings and Garrick also flashed through his mind.
I'm sorry to have disturbed you, Gorgeous-san. Please forget what I said. Just now, I was a little too frightened. My children and my husband are well aware of the city's emergency procedures.
Riala showed a strong smile, but her hands were clasped, as if in trembling prayer. There was no doubt that her gesture was reluctant, and she was only desperately putting on an act to keep Garfield from worrying. Silence. 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 In silence, gritting his teeth, Garfield's mind blazed. Mimi faced him, also silent, waiting for his decision. In silence, she only held his hand.
Don't worry. Leave your children and husband to us.
Gorgeous-san.
That unexpected answer left Riala speechless with surprise. With conviction, Garfield nodded, then looking down at Mimi.
It's my issue from now on, so you should go back.
Yeah!
Ow!
At being told to return, Mimi brought her foot down on Garfield's, who cried out loudly in pain. Mimi took the moment to stand tall.
I Garf said something so cool. How could Mimi not match him? I'm definitely going with you.
No, it's fine. Sorry.
You should be offering your gratitude.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Mimi giggled sweetly, and Garfield began laughing as well, feeling like he had been saved. Then, turning back to the stunned Riala, Garfield spoke.
My amazing self's gonna look for your family. So stay here with everyone else, and wait for us.
But why would you do so much for us?
Why was he doing this? Riala's wavering gaze questioned Garfield as to his true intentions. And Garfield grinned at her, showing his teeth.
Because my amazing self's a golden tiger. Gorgeous tiger!
And Mimi is also gorgeous Mimi!
Shouting their stupid lines, their levity shocked the people gathered in the shelter. Garfield and Mimi put on a pose, much to Riala's shock, and then, with a valiant spin, the two rushed out from the bunker.
Arf! What do we do?
Use the smell to track them. Those two and Garrick. You still remember their smell clearly, right?
The problem was that the city was very large, and water flowed everywhere. The environmental conditions were not optimal to accurately find their scents. In a city this populated, a powerful sense of smell could only do so much. Nevertheless, the olfactory sense of the two demi-humans would be able to yield some results. First, they returned to Riala's house, following her scent. Getting a whiff of them there, they would look for his siblings by following their scent. Meanwhile, the evacuation of the city's citizen has proceeded smoothly. The city, unpleasantly enough, appeared to be a ghost city. Finding instances of looting was to be expected in situations like this, but the absence of that kind was immoral behavior was very likely due to the reputation of the witch cult.
Is it this one? Arf! I smell them!
Right. We're heading towards this smell.
Garfield also picked up the scent Mimi did, and tracked where the siblings had gone. Those two seemed to have traced yesterday's route, starting at their house at 3rd Street, and moved in the direction of the 1st Street. And upon thinking of 1st Street as their destination, a thought flashed through Garfield's mind.
Those two went to the park to see the songstress.
On the previous day, the boy had said that he left too late and failed his objective. Having learned his lesson, he had left early this morning, determined not to miss the music of the songstress again. This time, his sister must have accompanied him.
In that case, if we go to 1st Street...
If they went there, then they could hurry and join Subaru and the others. Garfield brightened slightly, thinking that the situation had turned in his favor in a surprise twist. And then, he smelled it.
Is this their father?
Mimi noticed the same thing Garfield had, simultaneously. A scent that split from the siblings, midway towards the 1st Street. The scent of Garrick, who had headed in a different direction, to the City Hall in the middle of the city. Again, a time to make a decision descended again on Garfield. If he went straight to the 1st Street, he would probably find the siblings. If they had arrived in time for the songstress's performance, they would certainly have found safety. But what about the City Hall? As time passed, the people in the City Hall, where the witch cult had already made their attack, were in increasingly greater danger. Garrick was in a place where, at any second, the likelihood of his death increased.
Garf, what do we do?
Garfield was once again forced to choose. He could choose to confirm the survival of the siblings and then reunite with Subaru. In that case, he would be abandoning Garrick in City Hall. How could Garfield's relationship to Garrick be described? Unlike Riala or Raisha, and the children she had given birth to, There was no direct relationship between Garfield and Garrick. If blood connection were used as a criteria for rescue, Garfield had no obligation to rescue Garrick. However, what would become of Riala if she lost him? She would spend years mourning with her children, a possibility born because Garfield had forsaken the city hall here. That family would shed endless tears.
The city hall's where the Sin Archbishop's at, right?
Yep.
Those control towers are very dangerous. But if we can just get the Archbishop and kill her, then...
Everyone will be saved? Awesome! Too awesome!
Bouncing on the spot, Mimi applauded Garfield's opinion. However, she immediately stopped jumping on the spot.
Although it's not a big problem, but I feel kind of uneasy.
Uneasy?
It's very dangerous, that kind of feeling. It's not clear, but it's that feeling.
What she meant was that she had no bias for feeling those nasty sensations. Garfield felt thrown off by her timid attitude, at a time when the stakes were high. Up until then, Mimi had constantly supported him from behind, agreeing to his every judgment, and he thought that once again, she would give her backing.
How shameless. Expecting others to just do nothing but support me.
Garf, what can I do?
It'd be dumb to not pay attention to your unease. And the captain and the others are gonna give me hell for that. But...
It would be shameful for the strongest of the Amelia camp to turn tail and run away in fear because of that. And, no matter how much he struggled, in order to save the city, they will need to attack the city hall eventually.
First of all, we gotta confirm the situation of the city hall. Like, if there's someone guarding the place. And then we're gonna rip off that Archbishop's neck. That's what.
You mean scooting? Okay, we're going scooting!
Although Mimi was still a bit reluctant, she agreed with Garfield's safety measure. Seeing her draw her beloved wand from her robe, Garfield also drew his twin shields from his waist and attached them to his wrist. As his arms were covered in silver armor, he declared himself ready.
Let's go!
Alright!
With that response to Garfield's brief words, the two headed towards the city hall. According to information from Subaru, Sloth of the Witch Cult had several minions fighting alongside him. Although they could not match up to Garfield himself, the witch cultists that were experienced in combat were capable of posing a threat, especially in sufficient numbers. On the road, alert of any guards who may have been assigned there, the two traveled cautiously and carefully towards the city hall.
This is odd. What's going on?
Far from an overwhelming number of cultists, they found no one standing guard. Maybe they had missed them. No, they would not be able to cheat Garfield and Mimi's noses. In that case...
It's like they think guarding's not necessary.
As he recalled the voice from the broadcast, Garfield's anger at the Sin Archbishop peaked. They had never thought that anyone would attack them. Perhaps they were assuming that their control of the control towers was absolute, and that their victory had already been achieved. The sheer arrogance. He was going to tear them apart with his claws and crunch them with his fangs. As Garfield gnashed his teeth, Mimi let out a soft groan. She rubbed the back of her neck restlessly, looking disturbed, her nose twitching over and over again.
What's up?
I don't know, but I think that something's wrong. Garf, something's off.
Don't kid around!
Seizing the hem of Garfield's pants, Mimi suddenly spoke discouraging words. Garfield snapped at Mimi, who wanted to retreat after coming all the way here. The witch cult had neglected to even post an outpost. Retreating just because the atmosphere seemed off was not something they could do. If they left right now, the possibility of tragedy befalling Riala's family would only increase.
You can stay here if you don't want to go. My amazing self will bite off the Archbishop's head without a problem.
Garf!
Shaking off Mimi's fingers clutching the hem of his pants, Garfield leapt out of their hiding place. Following the path of the waterway coming from the square, he immediately dashed towards the building, the City Hall, right in front of him. The distance was narrowing. The atmosphere remained stagnant. Their arrogance was real. What a joke. Nothing happened. 10 steps left. 9 steps. 8 steps. 7 steps. He scaled a wall, finding an easier route to first attack the top floor. 6 steps. 5 steps. And when he put his strength on his foot for his next step, Garfield leapt not forward, but sideways. Immediately after, the sharp light of the edge of a terrifyingly sharp blade flashed by his gaze, and the cobblestone at his feet was slashed. The destructive energy had been completely silent. The stone steps that were cut obliquely remained still on their previous location, as if unaware they had been cut. Fluttering, choppy white smoke was the remnant of the friction created by that sharp slice. Were it not for Mimi's warning cry, Garfield would have been struck by that sword. A most beautiful and exquisite slash had barely missed Garfield's head. If that artistic cut had hit, Garfield's head would end up being put on a pike for display in the square. Cold sweat. At that moment, Garfield turned back, and something landed. Before his eyes, 2 figures had suddenly appeared from above. One of them was a giant man, so large Garfield had to tilt his head back to gaze upon his head, leisurely holding a large sword in each hand. The other was a slender, delicate woman, holding a long sword with a single blade in her grip. Both were wearing black robes, covering their faces, so their identity could not be discerned.
That ain't a nice greeting, you know.
Scratching the back of his neck, which was covered in cold sweat from shock, Garfield spoke, trying to divert their attention from determining his own combat straight. However, neither shadow returned any words to Garfield's own.
Garf, these 2.
Going around them, Mimi rushed to Garfield's side. Garfield did not dare to even look at Mimi, instead keeping his eyes on the 2 figures.
Yeah, they're strong.
Mimi's voice was tense, and Garfield silently answered by placing his hand on her shoulders, supporting her. The 2 shadows they were facing gave off the feeling of dreary, ominous demons. Their pre-international levels of danger the 2 exuded were impossible to measure accurately. The unfamiliar atmosphere pricking at Garfield's skin robbed his mouth of saliva, and he felt his throat rapidly drying up. It was plain to see that the enemy's strength far transcended the human realm. They were clearly superior to that female murder machine with whom Garfield had once fought.
Only 2 people?
No other shadows lurked around. The only guards were the 2 before him. They had masked their existence from Garfield up until now, so there were no potential presences. Those with strength had already chosen to stop hiding themselves. In other words, the 2 in front of them were the barriers they needed to break through to recapture the City Hall. As soon as he understood that, Garfield shuddered, the corners of his mouth raising.
Heh. Interesting.
Garf?
If we win, we can break through!
His heart stirred with vigor as Garfield refused to let fear dominate it, bashing his shields together in front of his chest. High-pitched sounds and sparks scattered, igniting his soul just as it began to cool down. However, grasping Garfield's pants, Mimi shouted,
No! No! Garf, no! Those 2! We can't! They're super strong! Mimi and Garf absolutely can't win alone. We can't.
We don't know till we try. I'll never admit defeat like that. Besides...
Mimi attempted to discourage him, but to Garfield, the content of her statements seemed to imply his own weakness. Garfield, however, clicked his tongue, jerking his chin towards the two hostile shadows.
Even if we run away with tails tucked between our legs, they'll just catch up to us.
And once. We'll hit them once, dodge, and then run away. If it's just us, we have to leave. Without the captain or Julius.
At Mimi's frantic words, Garfield bit his lip and pondered. Indeed, Garfield understood that Mimi was correct. Those two held fighting ability that might exceed that of Elsa. Facing two such enemies at once could only be called a suicidal act. As there was no other way, was withdrawing the right course of action? The two figures before their eyes were a barrier. Overwhelmingly might stood in their path, a barrier that had to be surpassed. Garfield, having been defeated by Reinhard, had realized how far from the strongest he was. With consciousness that he must become the shield of those most important to him, you had to walk down the path to become the strongest. A journey necessary so he could become a golden tiger. He had unexpectedly reunited with his mother and met with her new family, albeit not how he had once hoped. And if he withdrew here, Garrick would... Again, grabbing the hem of Garfield's pants, dominated by tumultuous thoughts, was Mimi, who kept her uneasy expression. Suddenly, Garfield recalled their gentle night. She had just been his kind guardian. Just then, his stubborn feelings began gradually melt away.
We'll be doing what you said. We'll hit him and run, and find others to come help us. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's it. Let's do it.
Mimi gasped with delight after Garfield withdrew his reckless ideas. Having unified their views, they turned to face the figures before them. The shadows had waited in silence ever since they had intercepted the two. Garfield and Mimi's brief quarrel had provided the perfect opportunity to launch an offensive. Had they held back because of honor? Compassion? Caution?
Let's go!
If they were merely cautious, then they would be crushed. Not needing a signal, Garfield and Mimi leapt into the fray in tandem. Garfield flew towards the woman, and Mimi attacked the giant. As Garfield approached her as fast as a bullet, the woman gently shifted her upper body and, in the next moment, was swinging her blade downward at an alarming speed. The beauty of the sharp flash of her sword as it split the air was such that it fascinated Garfield and caused him to momentarily lose himself.
Gah.
However, he was not so foolish as to lose himself and allow the blade to reach him. It bounced into the shield of his right wrist, and he took the opportunity to punt the woman's torso. She swiftly avoided his blow with terrifying nimbleness, turned around her blade, and fired another strike. His neck as the aim of the slash, Garfield blocked with the shield on his left arm. Immediately after, he lashed out a kick to her form right in front of him, her light body flying away easily.
Ha!
Looking at the form of the woman, who had been easily routed, Garfield felt exhilaration. Upon glancing back, he saw Mimi, adept in maneuvering herself against large enemies, successfully ducking under the strike of one of the large swords and firing back magic. She was about to exit the square. Mimi seemed like she was going to be able to escape safely. The giant did not have the speed to match Mimi as she ran away, and the woman did not have the ability to fight Garfield. In that case...
If we can win one...
If he could take her out, it would be easier to launch another attack later. After defeating the woman, the giant would be much easier to tear to pieces. Garfield kicked off the ground, moving towards the woman, who was still collapsed. Her sword was still far from reaching his left shield, and her torso was full of openings. If he slammed his right fist into her, the woman's body would be completely torn to pieces. There was no way that the woman had an immoral body like Elsa.
Gotcha!
He would be able to take out the woman. At that moment, Garfield became convinced of this and raised his voice, Death arrived from behind. The giant, who should have been far away, had approached Garfield, bringing with him the stench of death. Garfield reacted instinctively like a loaded spring. Immediately interrupting his attack, he brought his left wrist to his back, leaping away from the spot. However, a blow from behind smashed through the defense posed by Garfield's left arm altogether, slamming Garfield into the ground with a yelp, bones creaking. Garfield was swallowed by shock and groaned violently at the weight of that unimaginable blow. Having bounced up from the ground, an outrageous attack from the side again assaulted his body in midair. With the help of his twin shields, his arms barely moving, he defended against the impact, but his body was sent flying with terrifying momentum. Targeting Garfield, still gliding through the air, his trajectory parallel to the ground, the giant and the woman dove forward in pursuit at the same time. Garfield was sandwiched between two parallel attacks. He met the long sword approaching him from the front with a shield, and managed to just barely block the fierce blow of the giant's sword at his back by kicking its midsection. The long sword once again emerged from the fray, being met with a shield, the dancing sparks scorching Garfield's cheeks. Immediately after, the large sword struck Garfield's body, as if descended upon his body. His bones and sternum creaked, the power of the blow painting Garfield's vision blood red. He had been subjected to the strikes of two of those large swords, but their blunt blade has sparred Garfield's life. A cry of agony followed the blood spilling from his mouth, as if somehow managed to escape from his predicament by using his whole body as a spring. However, the two difficult enemies would not allow his survival. Silently, a quiet slash approached Garfield's neck. Although the intensity of this strike could not be compared with that of the previous one, the sharpness of the woman's sword was beautiful in that it was laced with the breath of death, ignoring the need for raw power. Even the tip of that calm, elegant blade would split him in twain, just as if he had been slashed by its midsection. Also wordless, the giant's battling style was brutal and crude. However, that kind of brutality was not one that left everything to chance and relied on recklessness. It was the brutality of someone who could harness and optimize their destructive power. Most people would barely be able to hold even one of his heavy swords, but he easily swung two of them, each in one of his giant arms. A slash like the flow of water, a slash like a raging cyclone. Although their styles were different, the effectiveness of their dynamic was commensurate with their overwhelming skill, and they attacked in perfect tandem. Garfield had no choice but to stand his ground and fight to the death. Desperately bouncing backwards on the stone steps, dodging a heavy slash, feeling a sharp wind whistle just over his head, relying on his instincts to withstand attacks with his shield, dodging, bouncing, defending. But if they kept at it, sooner or later, he would be overwhelmed by their momentum and be beheaded. The two figures pressed Garfield without respite. despite giving him nary a chance to breathe. Like that, his oxygen-deprived head could not be dedicated to finding a ray of hope. His every effort was directed on avoiding a fatal injury. His attention would surely fail to keep up as his exhaustion mounted, and his exhausted body would not be able to keep up. He would suffer a fatal blow. Masterful combat, transcendental swings. They could easily and simply reap Garfield's life, despite his confidence in his physical strength. The more time passed, the more escape route closed to him. Decision. A decision was pressing. The only way out of this dilemma was to reveal his true fangs. Only on that moment would Garfield be able to say who was clearly and overwhelmingly superior, him or the enemy. And that thought briefly revived him. He sought an opportunity to breathe. The woman's blade weaved deadly slashes. He cast both wrists forwards to capture her, twisting his body the least he could to avoid the full impact of the giant's attack. As expected, the giant's blow smashed Garfield's left shoulder, and his right kneecap was shattered. But, in exchange for a breath of fresh air, that damage was nothing. With a raging roar, he released the heat boiling in his body. The same feeling of boiling blood expanded to his field of vision, which became nothing but pure white, a crackling sound echoing from beneath his face as his bones shifted. His face was twisted, his teeth elongated into fangs, and he exercised his arms as their muscle expanded rapidly, his body becoming covered with golden hair. Only his upper body had changed, leaving him in a half-beast state. The smell of blood chased his rationality away momentarily, but in this state, he was not completely devoid of thought. Seeing the person in front of them turn into a beast, it was impossible for any hostile party to remain calm. Facing those two speechless figures, Garfield growled, with the intention of shattering their eardrums. As the enemy's footsteps froze, as if blasted with a gust of wind, confirming that his nails had grown into thick, double-edged weapons, he decided to gouge their bodies. The tips of the nails of his front paw descended towards the woman. Just before that, the form of Giant Man squeezed in front of her. No matter. Even those thick muscles were nothing worth mentioning. They were but paper shields to his claws, and shielding was just the giant intended to do. He stretched out his arms, the blade of his large sword facing down, making a gesture of neither defending nor attacking, but choosing to protect the woman. Cute. But it was over. His paws would tear through the giant's body, followed by the slender form of the woman. That process had already been set in motion, but had been paused in the first motion. Garfield's tiger paw connected with the giant, but had failed to tear through the man's body. Before that happened, he had caught Garfield's paw in his own hand. He had uncovered the front part of his robe to reveal 6 arms. With Garfield's thick arm suppressed, the large sword he gripped firmly blocked the tip of Garfield's claws, meeting the violent attack from head-on. That was the absolute defense of the 8 arms. Too stunned to react, Garfield hesitated. He could not believe that the giant had withstood his crushing blow without faltering, which meant that, in that moment, Garfield had left himself exposed and completely unprepared. Reappearing from behind the giant's back, the woman launched herself at an unprepared half-beast. Garfield's back, now wide and covered by tiger's fur, was much like a practice doll for the woman sweeping her longsword. As the tip of the sword approached, Garfield felt the invisible breath of death on his neck. However, his captured by the giant's hands and his body unable to move, all he could do was wait for death.
Hold on a second!
Just before Garfield was split in half, the woman's cut was stopped by an unfolding blue magic barrier, together with a shout. Her strike bounced into the barrier, and the irritating noise of a blade scraping on ice pealed, the barrier disappearing as the woman landed back on the ground. The orange-haired kitten had saved Garfield in the nick of time.
Arf! You said we'd run away!
For the first time, something like reproach colored Mimi's voice. In his half-beast status, hearing the voice coming from behind, Garfield's rationality returned as he began to recognize his own stupidity. By ignoring anxieties, being far too careless, and being too dismissive of his opponent, he had put himself in a dangerous situation. In his moment of despair, Mimi had rescued him. Garfield swallowed as he appreciated the sturdiness of Mimi's barrier. The violence in the woman's blade really did not match her appearance, and Mimi's defensive capabilities were also quite considerable. Garfield was incredibly fortunate that she was there. Immediately after the relief spread to his chest, Garfield forcibly broke free of the giant's grip. Kicking at the body, and spotting his blow being blocked by an arm, Garfield picked Mimi up by the waist and disengaged from the battle. In this way, he would flee from this place with Mimi. As they originally planned, they would gather reinforcements and return to this place to fight anew. While they fled, the woman bounced again in pursuit, but once again, Mimi deployed a barrier, this one larger than the previous one. The woman's slash was once again repelled, and Garfield gathered all his energy into his legs to escape as fast as he could. A breath. The figure of the woman stopped, gently casting a hand in front of the barrier. With a leap, she approached. A quiet sound accompanied a light impact. His jaw dropped as he witnessed the events unfolding. Garfield had finished making another jumping motion, pulverizing the stone pavement. But as the half-beast sailed through the air, fresh blood followed him, like a line of red being drawn in the air. That blood, where was it pouring from?
Midget!
Having his thoughts of maintaining his half-beast form interrupted, Garfield rapidly changed back to human form. However, the sensation of losing his tiger fur was buried under a wave of chills crawling down his back. In his arms was the weak, loose body of Mimi. He turned his gaze down. Looking up at his flying figure was a woman whose blade whipped through the air. More than half of that longsword was coated with red, vicious blood. A warm liquid dripped into Garfield's lower abdomen. Mimi remained limp and motionless in his arms, and he could see the wand she loved falling from her hands. Landing, jumping again, repeatedly leaping into nearby buildings, he fled without glancing behind. Fortunately, their adversaries were not following them. Were they uninterested in anything other than guarding the square? Or was this a show of humanity? It did not matter. After 4-5 lengthy leaps away from the square, Garfield crushed the roof of a building as he landed, lowering Mimi's body, still in his arms, and checked Mimi's condition. Mimi's eyes were closed, a large amount of blood spilling from the wound in her chest. Garfield yanked her clothes open to check on her wounds. Her vitals had not been struck. Of course, that did not fall for any optimism. Due to her blood loss, she was in need of immediate healing magic. He needed to calm himself. Placing his hand on her wound, Garfield willed healing magic into Mimi's body. Garfield was one of the best users of healing magic in Sanctuary. He had always felt that it was slightly useless, but in the event of any emergency, he hoped to accomplish something. Therefore, Garfield had poured all of his magical efforts into healing magic, and he had a rough but complete grasp of the art of healing. As long as the injury was not fatal, he was fairly confident that he could heal it, even if it were a deep one. The wounds on Mimi's body would soon close with the waves of healing mana. Sweat beaded his forehead as he put his hand on the wound, directing it to suppress the overflow of blood. He continued to dedicate his power to mend the cut, skin, muscle, injured internal organs, desperately willing them to be fixed, giving her mana continuously. The wound did not close.
What?
Who was whispering in such a soft voice? Any who could make that kind of soft voice in this situation deserved nothing but Garfield's wrath. He glanced around wildly, looking for the source. There was no one there. Finally, he realized that voice was his own. He was aware of it. So that soft voice had been him? Had he made that sound? Such a sound was... Close! Heal! Exhausted, with all of his might, he ordered all of the mana in his body into her treatment. The wave of healing magic flowed into Mimi's form, filling her with a gentle current of mana. In spite of this, the unsealable wound refused to close.
You're joking me, right?
Unable to accept the reality facing him, Garfield again muttered with a weak voice. Immediately afterward, he hit himself in the face and bit down hard on his lip to keep himself grounded. Now was not the time to make such a soft voice. There had to be a way. What could he do? He had no idea. But he could not give up here. Not knowing was not a reason to give up. He had to do whatever he could to save this girl. Because she was the one who had left Garfield cry. Such a child who had been hurt trying to save him could not die like this.
No!
Gritting his teeth, Garfield began to run. One of his hands rested on the girl's wound, trying again to staunch her bleeding with his ineffective healing magic. The smell of blood, the smell of death. In these deserted streets, even any thoughts about what had happened had vacated Garfield's mind. Someone, anyone, please save this kid. Someone, anyone, bring a miracle. Tell me what to do. If there's something I can do. What can I do to save her? Feeling at wit's end, Garfield sharpened his sense of smell. The smell of water. The smell of blood permeating his surroundings. Strong emotions. Charred meat. Amid those foul scents, Garfield found a very familiar odor brushing past, and immediately followed it, running, continually, endlessly running. He flew into a shelter, evoking an immediate uproar at his bloodied appearance. But he had no time to care at the moment. Opening his eyes, he searched for that figure. Searching.
Garfield!
He found him on the other side of the shelter, at the back of that deep, dark, cold underground facility. he discovered the one he had been desperately searching out. Subaru. Natsuki Subaru. To Garfield, that existence was miraculous, and in the worst case possible, he would be able to find a glimpse of light in the worst of situations. His legs were staggering. His head was shaking. Due to the light weight in his hands and his clogged throat, Garfield swayed back and forth. As he approached, Subaru glanced around him and gasped, becoming aware of the unconscious Mimi on his arm. Under Subaru's gaze, Garfield bowed his head, holding Mimi out, earnestly cursing his own stupidity.
Sorry, Captain. My amazing self's worthless! Incompetent!
He had been unable to protect that family. His vow to become a shield for them had not been fulfilled. He had challenged those hostile forces out of his own volition, and had failed to get any results.
Garfield! What? No. It's not the time for that. Ferris!
I know! Hurry up, hand over that child!
Mimi was taken from Garfield's outstretched arms and placed in a bed near Subaru, a thin figure standing next to her. In the next moment, overwhelming healing energy flowed, permeating the space. Garfield's own could not even compare to that. If Garfield's healing prowess were likened to a drop of rain, that person's ability would be akin to a waterfall. Witnessing magical power that could resurrect even a lost life, Garfield witnessed the treatment as if his soul had been drawn out of his body. Subaru gently placed a hand on Garfield's slackened shoulder. With a glance, he could see that Subaru had endured an appalling injury to his leg.
Although I can't say that this went well, you did a great job bringing her to Ferris. Thanks to you, the girl can be saved.
Thanks to me?
What was Subaru saying? Thanks to Garfield, Mimi had been saved? Ridiculous! Mimi had been hurt so severely, and it was all Garfield's fault. Mimi's life should never have been in danger in the first place. All of this happened because of Garfield's poor judgment. Hollow and twisted thinking, unresolved thoughts of remorse, and self-conscious stupidity. And the world would never forgive Garfield's foolishness. Mistake would always have their consequences. And so, a horrifying outcome arrived.
Ferris! What happened?
Subaru's expression grew worried upon feeling something unusual. Subaru dragged his leg, heading over to the bed where the treatment was being performed, calling the name of the person casting his potent healing spells. In that terrifying torrent of magic, the healer shook his head.
Why? These wounds, they will not heal! If it goes on like this, I don't know if I can save her!
His anguished cry echoed across the room, and Garfield turned his face toward the heavens. But he was underground, so the underground sky had nothing to tell Garfield. The consequence of his mistake could be nothing but paid in blood.
And that wraps up Arc 5, Chapter 31, the first time we've ever read past Chapter 30 in these readings. Good job, everyone. Welcome back. Time for discussion. Where's Lightning?
You guys can
I'm
discuss
right here.
more. Holy shit.
Really good, really good.
That was very well done.
Oh my god, you did it. You did it all. All of you guys did it. That was so great.
Amazing job, everyone.
Huge chapter. Long chapter, Kiki.
19,000 words, Christ.
Well done, Kiki.
Yeah, that was a lot.
Amazing.
We have pretty good chapter breaks after this. I have the page count. So 33 through 47 is going to be 32. 48, 64 is 33. So it's like reading 31 but splitting it in half.
Yeah.
Okay, Hollow.
Yeah, what's up?
Willow's art for next chapter is for the beginning.
I got it ready.
Yep.
Spoilers, Wolf.
I was
What
gonna
do you mean
say
spoilers?
I found this quite interesting from the way that this chapter basically lays out the way that Garfield would deal with problems versus Subaru, and I like the fact that Teppei is technically writing his characters to approach a problem and then have different ways of seeing it. Subaru, when in situations that are a bit tough for him, still has a bit of hesitance. He's typically led on by the fact that he knows people are going to die, so he must do it. Like, he has no other choice. When Garfield was faced with a problem, he took it as an opportunity to challenge himself, but also it causes a sensation of him feeling unconfident in himself. He immediately feels like this is something he has to fight. If he runs away now, well, that's just, you're right, you are weak. His mind is only in that place, and it's you can make the argument it's a bit selfish at that moment, especially since Mimi is there.
Definitely.
Mimi clearly making a point that we need to go. Mimi was clearly well aware of listening to instinct, which they both have, as they keep bringing up with them being demi-humans. Mimi's instincts is said to leave, and Garfield's was clearly telling him to as well. But he's not the strongest if he can't fight his instincts. That's something silly. We don't do that. We keep fighting. I have a chance now. It's always another opportunity with him.
Yeah.
Let's just get out of here as quick as possible. It's very minimal.
I have to go.
Oh, it's okay, Purple. Thanks for stopping by, though, man.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Some personal stuff with Purple. So, if you don't mind, Natsuki Subaru, you want to bring back a British Wilhelm for next chapter? Wolf, hello.
Subaru.
Well,
Subaru.
he's not here, I guess.
Wow, imagine not being here. Wow, Subaru.
So it was mainly, I think most of this episode, or I said this episode, most of this was mainly just seeing the dynamic that Garfield takes on when he isn't the protagonist. And it's not like he's not in a tough spot. He's finally found the only family he has, and he has to. He was trying to leave. Like, he is still trying to do a good thing. The issue is now it's playing into his already established character. Like, he was taking some more mature steps. So I tell my sister, she'll probably figure it out. Do I want to cause her some pain? Well, as much as I want to save my siblings, they're probably safe. The fact that they're in a less dangerous area than the most dangerous area. But Garfield did do that whole, like, Darmy is a Dynasty Warriors fan. Do not fight Lubu. You don't run to the most dangerous place with the highest guard, regardless of how strong you are. It's better to go with extra numbers.
Yeah.
And from the moment Mimi said, probably don't want to do this, I think Garfield was well aware that maybe this isn't a thing to do. Again, he's left in a tough spot because this is the only thing his mother has now, specifically, other than her kids. But this is like a major factor of her life. So does he just abandon and possibly let him die and go, oh, well? Or does he make this choice, as he would say, too, as a man, to probably make the choice a bit faster than he would more likely think out with the emotions and that mindset he has. And it doesn't help that these people, I said that he was just fighting Asuna and Kirito. He was just fighting some dude with two swords.
Kirito, if he had fucking 8 arms and
8 arms, yeah.
pushing his shit in.
Oh, one thing I did not completely understand when we went to the kind of death scene is I don't understand how she was injured specifically. I don't know if I just missed
but
the
a flesh
context
wound.
a bit.
It seemed as if somehow the woman with the sword cut her.
Caught up to them, yeah.
Yeah, but you don't know how or where, if it was at range or if it was close up and you just didn't see it, or if it was something else.
Yeah, I
You
just
don't
wanted to
really
make sure. At first I was like, I'm not sure how that happened. But yeah, no, we didn't even get like a talk from Mimi. She doesn't even get to go like, Garf, calm down. He is just in full...
Yeah, Nugget, so we kind of like... me and Nugget were practicing her lines last night, and she was like, I don't even get a death line. I don't get anything. It's just bleh. Mimi's gone.
Yeah. Suddenly.
Speaking of it, let me go see why she just... I'll be right back. Continue, carry.
Did someone want me?
No, they're talking about how Purple left, so now we don't have a Wilhelm, so somebody has to...
Did Purple have to go?
Yeah.
Yep.
They were asking if you, or Hollow was asking if you wanted to play British
I don't mind doing Wilhelm. My Wilhelm just isn't very good, unfortunately.
Yeah, mine isn't as good either. I mean, do you think that you could do it, Lightning, perhaps? You have a deeper voice than most of us here.
I do have a deeper voice. I just don't know if I can do the proper aspect to it.
Also, you have a lot of Ricardo lines too. So if you're comfortable,
Okay, that's true. That's true.
Too.
I mean, I could try to do it.
You give me something to say.
not gonna be.
I can try.
You want to pull up a little...
Give me...
Where's Wilhelm's next line?
Let me try it.
Here,
I'll just try
Viking.
one, and then I'll kind of bet if I do it. Anyways, should you want to give me one from before, not the one that we're about to read in like a second, or do you care?
It's not really Oh wait, no, that first line is kind of Give me a second.
Yeah. So I paused myself to go. Maybe that's not the best idea.
Yeah. Let me. I guess like if we can pull something up, that would help.
Maybe talk about Teresa and how much she loved flowers.
Just do just saying my wife always loved to look at flowers or something.
My wife always loved to look at flowers, Teresia. Is that stick around or yeah?
Yeah, it's fine.
That's fine. Yeah. I was having a little chit chat with Purple during the reading, and it was something that he needed to go and attend to. I wouldn't just
Okay.
Yeah, let that happen if. Yeah.
I will.
In the case something important. So
yeah, it was something
so
important.
Have to go.
Yes.
If I don't think I handle it, I'll just tell you guys in chat. I don't know if we'll see.
Yeah, that's fine. Something about this chapter that I kind of wanted to note was sort of towards. I mean, there's a lot of things to note about this chapter. It's kind of interesting how Garf went in and did all that. You could definitely tell it's sort of like the culmination of a lot of things that he's been going through recently.
Right.
Him saying that he kind of gave up his own selfish problems and he's like, okay, now I have to defend everyone. I have to be the one who do all this. He obviously knew that it might not have been wise, but he wanted to prove to himself or maybe to other people that he was still capable, that he was still able to do something. Like he knew that he had to save Garrick for Riala's sake. But also because he felt like it was the heroic thing to do, it was the manly thing to do. Even though he wasn't no longer, gorgeous tiger in his mind, or even if he wasn't, necessarily somebody that he himself loved. It was just sort of a thing that he felt like he had a responsibility to do. Okay, what?
Sorry. Nick Tram just gave $5 an hour ago. Happy ReZero Day. PP Munji just donated 120. Please use this for amazing illustrations of Priscilla. You know what moment?
Okay, yep, I know what moment. Okay, I'll do that definitely then. Yeah.
Wolf should know. Good sausages to all. Jesus Christ, you guys. All right. Hoshin Company. But I wanted to bring up this point to you, Gold, and just everybody in the chat. It's kind of really vexing on Garfield because. Would you say that Reinhardt was even going like 10% on him during their fight? Like even close to all out?
No, not at all.
Something that he noted as well, he was like, these guys are strong when he was fighting them.
Yes.
He's like, am I, like, even if I go all out right now, that'll decide whether I am like weak or like in what level of weak I am compared to them. And then you could even tell the two people that he was fighting just then weren't even going all out against him at all.
No. Not even close.
Specifically, you don't wait with people that you think are a threat. They specifically waited because he wasn't a threat. Like, regardless of the little talk they're gonna have together, it's not gonna do anything.
I'm kind of wondering if because I know it was mentioned if they grab Ricardo and Julius, but it seems that these two are like not your normal witch cult grunts. I know we brought that up like last time.
Yeah, we were like, oh, these guys are just witch cult grunts.
These are
these guys are.
Like, especially from the fingers, too. Like, these seem stronger than the fingers.
Yeah, these guys seem like they're people guising as witch cultists, like regular people, but they're actually, like, perhaps way stronger than that. Like, actual people with, like, actual histories,
Yeah, it's big. And then Reinhardt also is some other factor they're thinking about including, too. So, we'll see. We shall see.
Also, one thing I want to note as well from the end of the chapter, when they're talking about Felix's magic and also like what was it? It was about they talked about Felix has the power to bring people back from the dead.
Yes.
Is that something that's been mentioned before?
I believe
so.
Is that
do you know in the second trial when Felix was trying to heal
web novel
Subaru?
Second trial, yeah.
And like his Felix said his soul, like it's left his body, It's safe to assume that as long as the soul is in the body, Felix could likely heal you.
Yeah.
Is that another reason why Felix was saying?
Hey,
what's up?
Oh, I'm gonna ask Wolf. Oh, okay. I don't want to necessarily spoil anything, but I'll just say that it gives more insight into Felix's capabilities.
I was gonna say one other thing I liked that was a touch is Garfield calling on arrogance multiple times as he was making a very, again, not because he had a choice in the matter. Let's all keep that in mind again. But he was technically making like the biggest arrogant choice out of all of these things. If your opponents are being that arrogant, they're either foolish or they know they're okay. If he starts giving into a bit of his anger in the frustration of the situation, it was just very. It was a nice touch to have him be the one to point out arrogance before all this happened. Yeah, that was mainly it.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Even with Felix's immense potential, like it was illustrated as like Garfield's healing magic was a drop of rain, and Felix's healing magic is like a waterfall. Like healing magic, he's like, I can't close the wounds of this woman.
I mean, yeah, he's the best water magic user of the kingdom. He has
in the world, he's the best. Yeah. Period. Yes.
Man. I love the allegory. That's actually pretty good. Oh no, I can't water my plant. I only had like a drop of water. And then some dude comes over with a hose and he's like, just not enough.
It's just not enough.
Exactly. But even then, there's still not anything to do with that. And think about it like this as well. With the divine protection of Mimi's trisection, or whatever it's called, that's a third of the wound that she would have received.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's gonna happen to the other two?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question.
It was brought up in the last reading we did that they have like some kind of link similar to Rem and Ram, how they're linked together. Not quite the same, but they can feel
it's physically
like,
too.
Yeah.
Physically and not only mentally. Yeah. Or maybe only physically. Who knows?
Yeah, Mimi's bleeding out at an alarming rate, and the fact that Felix can't seal the wound is very dire to this situation.
So whatever that woman did,
if you think from a logistical standpoint as well, her body is so small that her losing blood. Is even
she's
more
fucking tiny.
Yeah, she's like 3 feet tall.
She has got like
she's already
minutes
lost.
to live.
She's half of Garfield.
Yeah.
Is she half of Garfield or she is shins? I don't remember it being that tall.
I feel like it's almost exaggerated. Like it can't be that small. Like maybe it is though. Like she's like 3 feet tall, I guess.
Yeah, she's tiny. Regardless,
the anime will give us like a height to work with.
Dude, like listening to Kiki narrate this scene, I wanna get it like commission animated, but that's gonna blow our budget right out of the water.
Oh, there's gonna be more fighting scenes that you're gonna want commissioned.
I know, but like just seeing this in action, like not practice reading it, it's so much more immersive. And then Jace with the OST swaps midway through.
Yeah, very great. Okay,
let's go on.
So, who's going to be the narrator for next chapter? Yeah. Does anyone want to take a shot at it?
I don't mind.
Okay, thank you.
You'd still probably do a better job than I'd be doing trying to do it. So
is Kyle's quiet on your end, or is that just me?
Because I can narrate the last chapter. I have lines this chapter like. 20.
Oh, okay.
I am drinking water.
This chapter is like really easy on music, so I could always narrate if necessary.
Hold on.
I was just about to say that I know Tealdi wanted to as well, and I know Tealdi has a lot of lines in the last chapter, I believe, compared to
Tealdi can voice.
One.
I don't mind.
Yeah, I don't mind reading this one.
Let me just see how much lines Krush has to make sure this isn't gonna like kill you.
I don't think this is a big one. I think tomorrow is the really big one.
Yeah, so you have like maybe, what is
5?
that, 4 or 5 pages and like singular narration, so you'll be okay.
Yeah, it's no problem.
Alright, so the debut of Tealdi the narrator.
Woohoo!
Alright, let's all meet up and get started for this chapter.
Alright. Arc 5, Chapter 32. Meeting for the Conquest of the City Hall.
Really? Healing magic has no effect, so we can only use such a primitive treatment?
Ferris, with blood staining his cheeks, clenched his teeth in irritation while waving a hand. Lying in front of him, on the cot, blood still flowing from her chest, was Mimi's unconscious and faintly breathing form. Wholeheartedly wanting to stop the bleeding, he had been forced to bind her wound with a cloth imbued with magic and several layers of bandages. In the case of collapsed on the ground, he saw that instead of looking at Mimi, Garfield had plunged his bloody hands into his short blonde hair, casting his gaze downwards, a far cry from his usual optimistic self. The blood covering his body was not only Mimi's. It was plain to see that he had his own severe wounds. Blood stained the corners of his mouth, and his left shoulder and right knee looked particularly painful. His pants were torn near his knees, where flesh was missing and white bone could be glimpsed.
Garfield, Mimi can be entrusted to Ferris for the time being. You also need treatment for your wounds.
Mirror in his hand. Reflected in the mirror, the surface of the mirror, was a silent old swordsman, his wrinkled face bearing a complex expression. In the depths of his own heart, what kind of conflict had risen? Undoubtedly,
it cannot be closed. Which is to say,
in all likelihood, it's a wound caused by the divine protection of the Death God.
Magic was probably due to such a divine protection. Then, as far as Subaru knew, only one person had possessed it. Of course, while it could not be asserted that no other person had the same divine protection.
Wilhelm, son. Although this is something I fear hearing, how is your arm injury?
Wilhelm briefly closed his eyes in meditation, then removed his coat and presented his left shoulder to Subaru. The bandage wrapped tightly against it had no traces of blood. Then there was no bleeding, so his attacker could not be nearby.
Even assuming the injury was given by somebody with the same divine protection as my wife, as long as my wound has not opened, she cannot be near. Although, that should be a matter of course.
Wilhelm, son.
Was he frustrated, or was he relieved? Subaru did not know. Wilhelm believed to have lost his wife 15 years ago. The events of 1 year ago might have made him doubt her death, but he had refrained from raising his hopes. It was a common weakness of human beings to hold a small Wilhelm succumb to that weakness. Subaru found no shame in it whatsoever. Therefore, at this moment, Subaru found no words he could say to Wilhelm. Of course, the latter desired neither casual comfort nor encouragement. Behind Subaru, a change in the situation had occurred. That was...
Bro, sorry to take your time while you're treating a wound.
Saying that, Ricardo sat on the ground. Near Ferris, desperately conducting his treatment, the Beastman sat in front of Garfield, whose hair was still moist with fresh blood, eyeing him sharply. To meet his gaze, Garfield slowly raised his head.
I don't know what happened yet, but I know that if you...
As Ricardo's forehead hit the ground, thanking Garfield for bringing someone who was much like family to him to this place, Garfield appeared dismayed. Mimi's prognosis was still far from optimistic. It was understandable that Garfield held some guilt for not being able to successfully protect Mimi. However, that did not mean that Garfield was to blame. What good would it do to blame him? In his heart of hearts, Ricardo had, of course, hoped for Mimi's safe return. There was no way that he felt calm about Mimi's situation, considering she had been brought back in that state. Even so, Subaru could clearly see that Ricardo's vaulted posture reflected his complete sincerity. At the same time, he also felt unforgiving anger at those who left Mimi in that state. Therefore...
Garfield. Although it's probably hard to talk about it, tell me exactly what happened. It's hard to believe that you're in such a state. Not to mention...
As he asked Garfield to explain the situation, an idea took root in Subaru's mind. Earlier, he had sorted through their information with Julius and Wilhelm, contemplating the siege of Bristella. The idea had briefly crossed his mind, the lives of everyone in the city hostage. According to their speculation, each location must be occupied by a mighty force. Assuming that was right, They were most likely guarded by wrath, greed, lust. Then the likelihood of that gluttony was also present was high. That gluttony was precisely Subaru's target. He could not let that go. Greed, who had kidnapped Amelia, and wrath, who had regarded Subaru as Betelgeuse. Lust, whose ugly nature he had heard earlier, and gluttony, the target he had been hunting. Although the situation was indeed the worst of the worst, at the same time, there had never been an opportunity better than this. Now that he was trapped in a spider web, it was the right time to exterminate all the spiders.
Anyway, we have to defeat all of these guys somehow. After all, if we don't, we'll never be able to return safe and sound.
With that declaration, Garfield stared at him in surprise. Subaru nodded with encouragement, urging him to speak.
After hearing that broadcast, my amazing self and the midget went to the center of the city. Both of us hated the annoying voice of the person talking.
We're also discussing a way to do that. Looks like you got the first chance.
On the way to the city hall, there were no sentries. There was nothing getting in our way. So my amazing self rushed straight towards the city hall.
Continued.
2 enemies appeared. One of them was this huge bastard that lunged around 2 giant swords. The other was a thin woman with a long sword. Either one of them probably give me a run for my money in a one-on-one fight. No. They'd probably be...
And among all of the people assembled to counter the witch cult's offensive,
those 2 didn't give me a feeling of malice like the broadcast did. Even though my amazing self left openings while escaping, we still got away. That seems like some kind of swordsman's etiquette, or whatever.
Garfield regarded his opponent's strength with something like awe. Unlike his usual lively self, he seemed to be atrophied, clearly still affected by Mimi's state. Ricardo, who had been listening to Garfield, slapped his knee with a dull sound and stood. Then he grabbed Garfield's shoulder.
Strong or not, I don't give a crap. What I know is, who of the 2 left you in such a state? Did that to Mimi? Who should I seek revenge on? Tell me.
That woman was the one who cut the midget. That's why. That woman. I gotta.
That woman. You leave her to me.
Ricardo's thirst for vengeance for Mimi had been ignited, and Garfield swore that same goal with shame. The one who had interjected, however, was Wilhelm, who had been listening silently through the mirror. To him, too, that was by no means something he would leave as is, but it was cruel to the 2 who did not know about Wilhelm's circumstances.
Why? This ain't got nothing to do with you, Wilhelm, son. You can't take my right to get vengeance on those who harm my adorable family. I cannot say for certain without having confirmation. However, if what I suspect is true, that woman is very important to me. Must insist. That, if you make me angry, I'm not gonna spare you.
Although Ricardo snarled in agitation, both sides, Subaru could not determine who was in the right. Therefore, Helm and Ricardo-sama, now it is not the time for strife between allies. Not when so many civilian lives are exposed to danger.
Krush-sama.
With a cool voice, filled with fortitude, Krush scolded the 2. At the reproof of his master, Wilhelm bowed in shame, while Ricardo scratched his head bloody, folding his arms. In the meantime, considering options that would avoid internal strife.
Okay. Let's make a decision.
Clapping gently, Anastasia took the mirror and pointed at Subaru. Smiling at Subaru becoming timid, Anastasia fiddled with her fox scarf.
First of all, I want to bring up the raid in the city hall proposed by Natsuki-kun. Me and Crusan's faction support that. If we take the City Hall, we'll also rescue people familiar with the city's workings. And even if it isn't retaken, the situation of the waterways could be improved a little bit, yeah? Although that may just be me and my wishful thinking.
No, I'm thinking the same thing. Moreover, if the other side launches an attack first, our choices will go down. If we want to act, the sooner the better.
What's this? You'll really be reliable in this past year, no? In any case, it's just as Natsuki-kun said, thanks to the conservation mirror, we can have people cooperating in 3 different places. And fortunately, about 70% of our total combat power can be dispatched right now. It'd be reasonable to say an attack on that City Hall farewell, yeah?
With Anastasia's opinion, Subaru glanced at Garfield and Ricardo. In order to conquer the City Hall in one fell swoop, it would become necessary to put out a beefy number of powerful forces. A raid on the City Hall would entail deploying forces from the shelter, Garfield and Ricardo. Then, from the shelter, Julius and Wilhelm would also join. If the members of the Iron Fang, as well as both Ton and Khan, and the numerous other adventurers staying in the city were added to their ranks, their combat effectiveness would be improved.
Honestly, if Reinhard were here, everything'd be just perfect. Could we get Tonkan to summon him?
It's strange that we haven't located.
Response to Subaru's attempt to maximize their combat power, shifted his gaze towards the 2 thugs.
Instantly did not appear. And this is not quite the pleasant thought. But
what? Really? Please stop doing this hesitation thing. I can't take it anymore.
Then, I welcome you to feel the same trepidation that I do. Felsama's followers were separated from her and Reinhardt just before all this happened. It seems that they were last seen speaking to a red-haired man.
Red-haired man? You can't mean that fucking bastard, right?
I can neither confirm nor deny this.
Subaru gritted his teeth indignantly while listening to Julius's elegant answer. If Subaru's speculations were right, Felton Reinhardt had met Reinhardt's father, Heinkel. What would the two have to talk with that man? And why were they not still taking action even now?
However, he showed up at Sirius's speech in that previous loop. What's the difference? Because of the broadcast? Has he taken action already?
Subaru did not fully understand what the conditions were before and after that event. In any case, knowing that they could not count on Reinhardt to show up was a cause for alarm. Subaru's shoulders dropped in contemplation. Meanwhile, Ferris had returned from the back of the shelter. His feminine costume was stained with black blood, and his face was drenched in sweat.
That took quite a while.
So, how's Mimi's condition? She fine? Did you save her?
As Ferris wiped his forehead of sweat, Ferris shook his head ruthlessly.
Well, I can't say that I've saved her, but the wound isn't getting worse. That's all thanks to her brothers right now. By strengthening their link, she's barely managing to hold on.
That's their divine protection at Trisection, right? In that case, what'll happen to the brothers?
Their divine protection is mean to have 3 children share the burden of fatigue and injury. They've strengthened their bond, allowing the brothers to hold the burden of their seriously injured sister. In that case, although her life can be prolonged...
When Natchan's life is exhausted, we'll die too, right?
From the mirror, a pained, high-pitched voice echoed forth. Ricardo frowned and took the conversation mirror, which reflected Hetero and Tivi, sitting side by side. The 2 brothers were also clutching their chests in pain.
You guys are idiots. Really. It's a group of hopeless idiots.
When I think that this is Nichan's pain, knowing that we are feeling the same pain together makes me a little happier.
I'm not as strong as my brother. So, Captain, I believe that you'll be able to do something for us soon. Because if I die, I'll become a ghost and haunt you.
Being assigned to aid with the injury their sister had sustained, the two brothers experienced the same serious injury. Seeing Hataro and Tivi lying side by side in their shelter, Ricardo let out a deep breath and took his machete in hand. Then,
in other words, gotta move quickly. And if we don't, there's no point.
Ricardo whispered in a deep voice that emanated his passionate feelings. No one could stop him. No one could not comprehend his emotions.
Send the Iron Fang out and have them clear the road.
Julius.
I'm going to. Those words came from Krush, who had tied her hair into a ponytail. She stood with sword in hand, having shed her dress, replacing it with clothes suited for battle.
Krush-san, by saying you'll go.
Wilhelm's words wiped away the last of Subaru's discomfort. The old swordsman nodded, gazing through the mirror toward his master's side.
However, please be careful. I implore you. Please, place your safety first.
It is the obligation of the nobility to bear the burden of and to shed blood before the common person does. If innocent people weep, then I will shield them under my wing. I will fight, Wilhelm.
Honestly. But it is because of that I offer you my sword.
Krush spoke resolutely towards Wilhelm's allegiance. Ferris raised his hand as he watched Wilhelm nod, the latter's face full of admiration.
Yes, yes, Fairy-chan too! If Crush-san will fight, then please let Fairy-chan accompany you! Please!
Ferris has traveled between shelters to cast healing spells on those in need of treatment. I am glad that you feel that way, but do not mistake which battlefield you should be fighting on. Silenced in that manner, Ferris bowed his head, agonizing while searching for any retaliation. Unable to find one, he raised a white flag with a tearful expression.
Wilji, definitely do a good job protecting Crush-sama, okay? Absolutely, absolutely!
I understand. Even if my own life is in danger, even if it burns out, I will do so.
That was Wilhelm's answer to that trust, full of tragic determination. Ricardo waved his sword gently, and Garfield finished his own treatment and stood with his back leaning against the wall. Through the mirror, Wilhelm stood gallantly with sword at his waist, and Julia stood next to Krush, who had changed her clothes. A total of 5 people, with the strength to strike at the city hall. At Anastasia's direction, the Iron Fang would restrain the witch cultists and pave the way. The dawn of the decisive battle, which would also include Natsuki Subaru.
Subaru-kun, what are you doing?
Biting his molars to endure the pain in his right leg, Subaru finally climbed to his feet. Ferris, flushed in fury, slapped Subaru upside the head, glaring at his leg, which was still missing skin and muscle.
Ferris! That hurt!
Of course it did! I've always said that you absolutely need to rest, but you keep being unreasonable. Subaru-kun, have you been cursed?
Ferris raised a hand to his mouth as Subaru pressed on, sending his companions to a place where survival was unlikely, then waiting for results. Subaru could never endure such a thing. If he could come up with some clever idea and help someone by just standing by, how could he lie here?
I regret not fighting more.
Well, then, Subaru-kun also wants to play a cool role.
With an exhausted expression and a sigh, Ferris held a hand to his forehead. After that, he violently flicked his finger on Subaru's forehead, causing him to lean back, and Ferris pressed his hand to the wound on Subaru's right leg.
What I'll be doing right now is giving you a bit of solace.
Solace is... Ah! Wait a minute, Ferris-san! The injury kind of hurts, so rubbing it back and forth like that, it doesn't hurt.
His hands on the wound, Ferris ravaged Subaru's leg. Was what should have happened, but instead, a faint light shone from the injury, ending the pain which had been piercing through it like a sharp blade. Subaru, shocked...
Murderous?
No! No! Although, If you have such convenient magic, don't be so reluctant to give it sooner! This is great! I can move!
In front of Ferris, Subaru jumped lightly with his right leg as Ferris's sharp tongue took a jab at him. While enjoying the joy of his new freedom of motion, he began to dance in place. Pain was no longer a problem. His palm hit the wound with a smack as he celebrated the amazing change. Then, Subaru looked down, feeling something sticky and wet. His hands were covered in bright red. The wound on his right foot had ruptured.
Hey! Didn't you heal it?
I never said I healed it. I just asked if you'd regret if you lost your leg. Fairy Shan just removed the touch sensation of your right leg. As long as you're careful running around, you can keep your leg.
Subaru's bleeding leg shook as Ferris rebandaged the wound and cast fresh spells. The blood stopped. However, Subaru felt even more uncomfortable, realizing that he couldn't feel anything from his leg. It was similar to not being able to feel touch. His right leg's actions were almost normal. However, pain itself was also a limiter to avoid destroying one's own body. For the sake of convenience, those sensations had been revoked.
Of course, I'm doing this reluctantly. When we meet back up, there'll definitely be some residual effects. If you want to keep them at a minimum, be careful.
Understood. You've been a great help. I'm grateful.
But Subaru-kun is absolutely certainly planning to ignore Fairy Chan's words.
Ferris sighed and turned away from Subaru, who nodded and re-examined his leg. Although he would like to say something like,
I'd never do such a thing.
If the situation arose, he could not promise that he would comply with Ferris. Unable to make any promises, Subaru could only thank him once more before rushing to Garfield and Ricardo.
Right. I'm coming too. It's useless to try to stop me. I don't think I'll be too much help in combat. But there must be something I can do.
Why'd you stop? You bring with you the strength of 100 men. I'll be counting on you.
I can do things like... Huh?
Although he had been waiting for a rejection, he had been eagerly welcomed into the party. Subaru wondered what in the world was happening as the Beastman Ricardo opened his mouth.
Well, the White Whale and Sloth. Both times, I saw your courage myself, bro. You'd be wrong to think that only Wilhelm sees your value. I also see someone worthy of praise.
Really? Truly? Feels weird.
Inspired by Ricardo's words, Subaru's self-invitation was gone without any problem. Before leaving the shelter, Subaru approached Beatrice's bedside and gently touched the forehead of the girl who slept quietly.
Beatrice. I'll be going now. I messed up and left you like this. So now it's my time to work hard. I'll take care of those guys and get Amelia back. You just stay here and rest well.
Silence. Comforted by her peaceful breathing, Subaru stood up. Meanwhile, Garfield and Ricardo spoke to Mimi, who looked miserable as she lay unconscious. Although she gave no response, the two men showed an opposite expression, showing strong determination.
We'll leave the shelter and join up at the large waterway leading to the city hall. So, everyone, be careful.
Before their departure, everyone exchanged glances, determination fueled by their respective oaths, fierce momentum propelling them onward. The war to regain Pristella would commence with a raid on the city hall. The two swordsmen in their way, and the Sin Archbishop of Lust, inscribing those targets in their minds, the soldiers marched towards the battlefield.
And that ends Arc 5, Chapter 32, where things are starting to really kick up, and a counterattack is starting to form. We do have a light novel illustration unlocked.
Yes, and we also got a fan art illustration up on the screen right now.
The third one
is so good.
Yes, indeed.
The third one is reading. Indeed. Let me pull this down and pull up the fan art. Or the fan art, the light novel illustration. What do you guys think of this chapter? Speak your mind.
I want to say now that I finally got to be in the position of one of you guys, and you have to talk to yourselves, specifically Kyle's, because I know you've done this. Wow, that's weird. Wow, that's
so
weird.
good, Lightning. Good job.
Glad it was okay.
You did a great job, Lightning.
Also, Purple is back. Welcome back, man.
Yes, thank God.
Yay!
Yeah, I'm back.
Are you okay, Purple?
I'm okay.
Good.
He's ready to yell some Papa Wilhelm lines.
Yay!
Grandpappy!
Grandpappy Wilhelm.
Grab the sausages.
No!
No.
So I want to preface.
Did someone say sausages?
No.
9.
What have I done?
Talk about the chapter. Talk about the chapter.
I just want to say, going into next chapter, I could have practiced for 4 years going into next chapter, and I still feel like I'm gonna fuck up the line. So I'm sorry if that happened.
That's fine.
Hollow. Just do your best and it'll be fine.
Wolf Claw.
Hollow, I just
It's
did
okay.
that thing. You'll be fine. I'm sure you'll be okay.
I get why the Alclaristic joke was a thing now. Gold.
Yeah, I told you.
I didn't know. But yeah, this chapter. I mean, I read ahead, so I don't really have any thoughts until the end of 33. But
outside of the divine protection, which I'm both in. So one, Mimi's injury. If it is wait, not the divine protection. What was the name of it specifically?
It was divine protection of the death god.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That one, oh, it was a divine protection. Okay, anyways, specifically that one. That's a horrible situation to be in this situation, but it does at least give some lenience that, okay, maybe we can just kind of get her away from here. But that's not necessarily the best course of action at the moment. We're trying not to divide everybody, especially since Felix has to be running around and healing people. So unless he's just going to carry Mimi on his back the entire time, I'm not so sure about that one.
Yeah.
Second of all, now we have this one issue where not only will Mimi die now, but before we read that, I was sitting there like, I mean, so what happens if she dies? And then right after that, it's, oh yeah, then they all die. Well, now we're screwed. Double.
Yeah, because they're sharing her pain right now, which helps her right now, but it's also endangering their lives as well.
And I mean, Tivy and Hitaro and Mimi are kind of like really strong characters to have as part of the Iron Fang.
You saw how she was able to make barriers with just her voice, you know, it was just like...
Enough to stop blows that Garfield was having actual physical injury from. That's also very important. Yeah. It's nice to see Wilhelm and Ricardo hyped. I'm kind of super prepared for this.
Wilhelm's
Hello. And it makes sense considering what he was saying. Like, his implication was that, like, his idea is that, like, somebody has the divine protection of his wife.
It's weird because if Wilhelm's wound was open, just as Mimi's was, it would be a dead giveaway. But we're in this weird like situation where we've seen like as cut content in Arc 3 that he has like this unsealable wound that randomly opened after combat.
Right.
But it's a different situation now. So
yeah, it seems as if
it's a mindfuck.
Once Teresia died, somebody else got born with her curse or divine protection. So it's kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah.
Wait, the divine protection of the death god is Teresia's?
Yes. It is, yeah. Was like when she wounded somebody, it like completely messed them up. Like no matter what happened, like no matter what she did. So that was like one of her reasons why she was so afraid of fighting. You know, because it was so awful what she did to people. Yeah.
There's like a range on that too, right? It's like if she's nearby, it reopens, but when she's far away,
that's what happens.
It just closes.
Yeah, it seems as if there's a range on it. Yeah.
And in Arc 3, is a wound reopened?
It's
Yeah. So it's kind of a weird thing, right? Because like the idea was that she was killed by the white whale, and that for whatever reason, fighting the white whale reopened Wilhelm's wounds. So now he's saying that it's because of the proximity of his wife, perhaps. It's just sort of a thing. Like the white whale ate her memory, so she had, the name and memory of Teresia, so perhaps it had something to do with that. It's a sort of a vague thing at the moment. But
the white whale can accumulate protections?
I'm just as confused as you are. Super.
Whoa.
That was my thought right now too. Is he just
well-protected whale
stacking on him? He's eating as many people as he is. He's just
stacking protections.
Yeah.
Just eats Reinhardt. Game over.
Game over.
Oh, dude.
Hope he has suck.
That's the worst part too. If he did eat, if it worked that way, and he could just make, you know, like split him up. If he splits himself apart, so now he's 3 whales. He's not 3 Reinhardts.
Are people clowning on?
Oh my god.
Are people going to be clowning on the white whale for the rest of this chat now? Is that what's going to happen?
Probably.
The white whale. Wow.
On a different note, I think it was nice seeing a little extra characterization from Ricardo, because as Garfield said, Garfield's basically almost having to like go walk up to some girl's dad and be like, yeah. We were out this weekend and she's basically almost dead. Please don't kill me. And his reaction was very sincere the entire time. We kind of got that last time when they mentioned his, they were talking about him talking and how it seems like he's always at least in that moment, he had levity to him.
Yeah.
But when talking to Garfield, he completely realizes like, my blame is not on you. My blame's on whoever did this specifically.
I just want to add too that, I don't think, Ricardo knows like exactly how reckless Garf was, so that could also add to the anger if he found out that like Mimi was saying, "Nope, we should leave. Nope, we should leave." And Garf's like, "I got this." Garf's like, "Nah, I got them." And gets
got him. Both of them.
Yeah.
To one hand.
Trust this 14-year-old boy's strength.
Yeah, I know, right? You know, something interesting that they're talking about.
My daughter.
Yeah. Something interesting. Yeah, something interesting they were talking about was like the fact that like these kids are like, you know, Garfield is obviously the strongest in Amelia's camp, and Subaru has such like a high expectation of his strength, and for whatever reason, you know, these people are leagues above Garfield, like these 2 random witch cultists, and they're not even Sin Archbishops as far as we know at this point. So it just sort of like, how are these people so strong? Like it just makes no sense.
They didn't skip leg day. No, they're very powerful. I don't know why. Like, my lord.
Like the witch cult, just in general. I was rewatching season 2, episode 1 yesterday. I'm gonna have to go through the series again. But even with like Lai and even with Regulus, they're on a different level. Like the speed we see from some of these characters. I already said it the last time with Sirius. With the whip moving around, she has to be moving like the speed of sound. She's still keeping up in the air, kinda, with Reinhardt. These people are just ridiculous. It's almost like just giving into your sins makes you OP.
Well, that's true. And Subaru had this expectation as well, where he said, you know, like Betelgeuse was strong, sure, but like these witch cult or these Sin Archbishops that he's been seeing, both Regulus and Sirius, on a completely different level in terms of strength, even compared to him.
But so I think I have an explanation for that one. It's very simple. He was slothful during training, and the rest of them weren't.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, to be honest, most of I think another reason is the fact that how should I say? Of course, we know Juice's backstory and whatnot, but also because of Betelgeuse's entire authority is all about survivability rather than, you know, like, you know, fighting.
Yeah.
And Sirius is sort of like that as well, but she's also capable of using her chains. And am I wrong? She's able to use fire magic. Is that something?
Yeah, she used fire magic like the last time.
Yeah. So she also knows fire magic, which is interesting.
I know these.
Or is it
on a different level?
Is it what is it? It's not fire magic. It's ice magic, right?
Whatever. Well, yeah, it's. Well, no, I think it is fire magic. I think fire magic is like it's because like that's the temperature.
Fire magic. Okay, sorry. Fire magic, right? Ice magic. Ice magic. Yeah, sorry. That's how it is.
Yeah. It's really confusing. Yeah, no, 100%.
Okay, so what are Anastasia with Catboy in the background? What are you guys planning on doing for the splits coming up? I see you guys talking about it in chat.
Yeah, what are people talking about right now?
Yeah,
I was just seeing who the narrator was.
So no,
what is
I'm not narrating for the start of this chapter. I was just talking about chapter 37 in the future. There's a section at the beginning of that chapter I want to narrate in first person.
Okay, I was so confused. All right. So there's an asterisk break of this chapter then? Like, there's 2 conversations happening at the same time.
Oh no, I'm not talking about this chapter.
No, I'll just narrate this chapter, I think, in a second. Anyways, so another thing to note is they were talking to Felix and Subaru. I just want to bring up the fact that it's funny how every single time they have like a conversation, it's basically just like Felix being like, Felix being like, "Hey Subaru, don't go out there," and he's just like, "Oh yeah, sure thing. I'm not gonna listen to your advice."
Bye.
Yeah, okay, bye.
Oh, this leg's injured. You don't want me to put my foot directly on the
It's a
pavement
flesh
with
wound.
it?
It literally happens every single time. Like Felix is like, "Hey, don't use your gate. That'll break your gate, Subaru.
Boom, boom,
That's
gate.
awful. Don't do that." Boom boom gate. "Hey Subaru, don't go and fight right now. I just healed you. You're injured." Goes fights Betelgeuse. "Hey, Subaru, you just got injured just now. Your leg fell off. I just healed you. You shouldn't go out there and put too much stress on it. I have to go right now."
I do like how
Look at the.
I do like how Subaru tries to be a badass. He stands up, he starts like fucking like
dancing. Does a little victory dance. It's
It
like,
illustrates it
why
pretty
why
well.
is blood?
and then he turns off the nerves in his leg so he doesn't feel any more pain.
Well, I mean, like, why would you go to the Pokemon Center when you can just soft reset?
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Oh, we're gonna do this Nuzlocke.
No.
This is all for
I
another stream.
do love how he goes from serious, quite gritty pain to like, oh, what?
Oh, there's
Okay,
my
yeah,
kills
In
again.
the back of the neck.
Yeah. He was literally like, he was literally just dancing like he didn't care. He punched his wound. It was kind of funny.
Punch. Yeah.
There's one last character that I liked the little note we got from. Though Krush has been out of commission, again with rewatching episode
Crow was
1-ish,
probably
even when-
screaming when
Oh,
this
that
happened.
too. But like even that one moment we got where she was talking to Felix and Felix was like concerned about her safety, we had a little bit of Krush going, "No, I'm going to choose my own path and I'm going to do what I need to do specifically." And now we have a moment where we see that she went right back to training. Like she realizes, she in the beginning with season 2, she has like a burden, and you can tell that she values the weight of the burden. Like she understands what it means to be a leader to her retainers and not be up to their par at the moment. So she went immediately back into her training. I'm sure with Reinhardt, she's probably still going to be decently good, and muscle memory is like still a thing. So though she might not have all her skills currently at the moment, it's very nice to see her get like almost, even without her memories, she's still kind of Krush, which I like. But if anybody else has any words on that, go ahead.
Prepare the battle bow and get right back up on that horse.
Yeah, she literally, she literally puts her hair up and she's like, "All right, I'm out. I'm ready to do it." Also, something to note, I always think this is funny, just how worried Felix always gets about her, no matter
For
what happens.
anything with Krush,
Yeah, literally, just like, don't. She starts like crying. It happens all the time. You know how it is.
She goes like to the store to go shopping. He's just crying because he is like really like he's really attached.
Yeah, I mean he's attached to the hip by her.
Yeah.
For a lot
He
of
just
reasons.
said that he wanted to follow her in a battle instead of healing like everybody else.
Yeah, he literally.
He's probably literally.
Felix. Okay, yeah, I wanted to bring this up. Felix doesn't even know any like offensive.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think he even knows any offensive water spells.
This is
No,
the
he doesn't.
equivalent of taking Aqua into battle and she's just yelling purification at everything and it's not doing jack.
He's like,
crap.
if Kursama gets injured at all, I want to be able there to heal her instantly. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, think about
You
it.
have a paper cut. Wait, stand still. I'm gonna heal you.
The only offensive water spells we've seen from anyone in the series so far is Rem, with humor.
I'm
that
resisting the urge. Oh, okay,
Um,
Gold did it.
Ice spikes.
Isn't that fire magic? Or is it ice?
No, that is water magic. She
Okay, it's
only
water
has
magic,
water element.
All right.
Yeah, so.
Oh, because of the water trick she did as a kid. That's right. They learned water magic.
Yes, because
God.
fire magic controls temperature and can make actual cold ice. Water magic can only create like crystallized ice that doesn't really have any sort of temperature. It's just a projectile.
It just spike,
Yeah.
Ren?
Rem literally ratioed Ram when they were kids. I just realized that.
Yes.
Oh my god. No, can we do a bridge version of that scene with the horns
ratio.
flying off?
Yeah.
And then Rem's just like, get ratioed, idiot.
Gold, you're
Get
narrating
ratioed, idiot.
this one then?
It's one in Hollow's voice.
Wait, who's narrating this one?
You said you. So Wooloo wanted to
Yeah, I
narrate
will.
too. You want us
Oh.
to just split, asterisk split in between?
Yeah, sure. 1 second. Wooloo, how's your mic right now?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We can hear you.
I'm putting a blanket over my head this time to see if I can fix the interference. Because if all else fails with the microphone, just use a blanket.
Yeah. Okay. That should be
Wooloo,
good.
you really are Wooloo now, aren't you?
So, do you want
Yes,
to
I
do
am.
the first part of the chapter or the last part of the chapter?
That works fine with me. If it's fine with Wooloo.
To the asterisk break, or you can do the entire chapter if you
No.
want. Actually.
It doesn't matter. Whatever you guys want to do.
Just
Yeah.
do a
Go ahead
split
and
split
do the
then.
entire. No,
Oh, okay.
no, you do the entire chapter. It's fine.
All right,
I did
perfect.
once earlier. So it's fine.
You might want to change your
Believe in
nickname.
you.
People in
Okay.
chat are saying that Siri's going to become a pirate by the end of this arc. He's already become a pirate in Arc 4.
I'm a pirate.
He'd be looking for Amelia Tan's booty.
Peg leg.
I'm not. I'm gonna.
Oh no.
Oh god, I'm gonna be practicing my lines the whole time we're reading this. But let's get into it. Okay, holy shit.
Polo, you'll be okay.
Oh wait,
you'll be fine.
Purple. What happened?
Oh no.
Give me a second. Intermission. Please stand by.
I guess get ready to be Wilhelm.
Willow says in chat, I want you to
What's your
heal
day
so you don't
today?
lose your leg. Reject humanity. Become pirate.
Somebody said, give Felix a Glock.
Yeah.
Wilhelm has
He's a god.
1, 2,
They can do this
3,
for me.
4,
I'm a healer, but
5.
Got you meow.
Okay. Wilhelm has.
Call an ambulance! Call an ambulance!
He just
Oh,
knocked on me.
Oh no, that is
No,
internet.
no,
Not
no,
for me.
Better yet, he's
I don't know,
like,
maybe.
I am the ambulance. And then he just.
Yeah, I am the ambulance.
As we wait, Hollow, am I able to have mod power to help out Krill and Fanta
Mod power for what?
in your
Kyle's
chat?
a divine mod.
You're an anime only too. What do you mean mod power?
I mean, I already been spoiled by quite a bit because I follow
Oh
our
my
artists.
god.
At least it keeps you safe. I know things that make me happy.
Talk in chat and I'll
So-
mod you.
Okay.
Look what you've done. You made
you
poor
go.
I
Kyle's
want
get
to be
spoiled.
modded. I think
Uh,
I'd be an amazing
Hey, Purple, welcome back. Jace, you can apply at www.streamlabs.com/holographic/tip. And
mod. Oh,
So what you're saying is I already have enough money for being a mod. Yes?
I thought you were being serious for a second. You
no,
stopped.
just type in chat if you want it. I don't really care. Hey, Purple.
Son of a bitch!
How's it going, man?
Divine power.
The divine protection of being sus.
Cedric says mod gang. Mod gang indeed.
You're a tool, and a tool is all you'll ever be.
McDonald's actually does serve breakfast after 11 if you have a gun.
Kyle, speak in
Yo.
chat.
Oh, oh gosh.
I'm trying.
They
Hollow, I
changed
have
it
to
now.
sign
They
into
do
my
have like a
account.
limited breakfast menu. You don't need to threaten them.
Keels McGeels.
But the thrill of
I'm trying, I'm on a
threatening them,
different
that's
setup.
half of the breakfast, you know?
But I have to
I
keep
do
turning
think
around
so.
and talking to my bike.
I do think that they don't serve the McGriddle though, so that's kind of a sin. So
Purple,
Not allowed
Tin.
to have a McGriddle.
Purple, are you here, man? Purple?
Purple!
Yeah, I'm here. It's raining and the power just cut out.
Okay, I kind of thought so. We
But
didn't
it
want to
came
start
back.
without you.
Oh shit.
All
There's
right.
been a pain for a long
All right,
time.
Kyles, you can stop yelling at me. I'm giving you mod power. Oh, I accidentally put
You
you in
told her to
timeout.
type.
Oops.
oh no.
Hello.
Oh my gosh, you had one job.
Hollow, you are actually special.
What
And
does
not in a
that
good way.
mean?
I don't want a timeout.
Mom!
God, Mom. God.
Oh,
You gotta
hold
get
on. Talking stick time. Jace, do you actually want mod? Before we
Do you
continue.
think that timeout is bad?
I mean, for some reason, the stream, like, I'm like looking at the YouTube, but it won't show
Don't
me
worry
the chat.
We can do it
That
after.
happens
So
sometimes.
yeah,
that
it
happens
doesn't matter
sometimes.
right now.
All right.
Please, you're also on music too. I have nothing to do, so it's okay.
Purple, so
Besides-
you're ready to get into it, Papa Will?
Of course, of course.
Oh my god. Okay,
There's
let's
that-
do it.
there's that
I'm so
great
fucking
voice.
hyped.
Great.
All right.
It's about to go down.
Wulu's sir narrating. Yeah, whenever you're ready, Wulu, let's get into this chapter.
Yeah, Woo is.
All right, I'm ready to get into it. All right, I'm ready when you guys are. Oh, okay. Silent Bristilla's siege had, up until now, seemed to be naught but a fanciful story. Talking a talk of the stone slab, Subaru glimpsed the flowing waterway. Water running within was clear and pollution-free. And now, it flowed on the constant, well-established path. Mysterious mechanism which split the flow between left and right was still up and running. As long as the floodgates resumed their function, anyone would believe that the peril the city was under was little more than a nightmare.
Captain! You can't drag your feet, you know.
I know. Every second that passes, the danger of this City Hall capture mission increases by 10%.
In that case, if 11 seconds pass, we're screwed, yeah? Oh, that probably ain't far from the truth, actually.
Garfield, who had taken the lead, narrowed his eyes in displeasure as Ricardo's loud voice rang out through the air. However, the Beastman's expression was not discouraged in the least. Carrying his sharp mache, he strode forward with vigorous steps. Not even his cavalier attitude was enough to relieve Garfield's tension and guilt. Ricardo looked no different from usual, while Garfield had clearly discarded his usual demeanor. Even so, 3 people who Ricardo considered family were hurt. Being in a calm state of mind right now is difficult. This had been made clear back in the shelter. On the other hand, the typical unfounded self-confidence and recklessness of Garfield has vanished. But what remained was a cautious and more timid attitude. A change that emitted an ominous message.
Well, I can't say that I'm any better off either.
Those 2 were not the only ones unable to maintain their usual state of mind. Subaru had suffered an injury to his right leg, Beatrice was unconscious, and, most importantly, Amelia's safety was important to confirm at the moment. All of those weighed heavily on his mind. The only reason he had been so quick to try and change the situation is that his experience told him that not seizing the initiative would hasten a terrible result. 3 groups to capture the City Hall building, each of them with their own problems. Having encountered neither witch cultists nor mobs along the way, they successfully arrived at the rendezvous point. And there...
Subaru Dono.
It is great to see that you are all safe.
Wilhelm and Cruchet seemed enthusiastic about Subaru's arrival. Of course, Julius also come along with them, who elegantly stroked his hair.
I am sure that you are worried out of your mind for Emilia-sama. Are you sure it is okay for you to be here instead?
I'm not stupid enough to lose sight of what's truly the priority here, for the good of everyone. As irritating as it sounds, Emilia was why that bastard was there in the first place. I feel that I don't know to think about him harming Emilia right now.
I do feel for you. If Anastasia-sama were placed in the same situation, I doubt I would be able to keep my composure.
After nodding in response to his concerned words, Subaru turned to Wilhelm. The old swordsman closed his eyes as he crossed his arms. His whole body irradiated the quiet energy of a swordsman. Subaru could not tell what he was picturing in his mind, nor what his thoughts were swirling behind his eyelids. However, as if sensing Subaru's gaze, Wilhelm opened his eyes and reached into his coat. He withdrew a mirror and handed it to Subaru.
Subaru Dono, this is a conversation mirror. In the heat of battle, I doubt I'll have any leeway to operate it. So I shall leave this to you.
Understood. Let's move as planned.
The mirror carefully in his pocket, Subaru nodded. As discussed earlier, the conversation mirror would be distributed among the members of the 3 shelters, so that there would be one person in charge of communication. Subaru, the least useful in fighting affairs, held one mirror, while the other was held by Ferris, who has been traveling between shelters. The last one was held by Anastasia, who served as their source of intelligence. Ideally, they would have these 3 places cooperating for the best results.
Then, to confirm again, we are moving to the battlefield identified by Garfield-sama, where 2 witch cultists are guarding the City Hall. One is a giant who handles 2 broadswords, and the other is a woman with a slender longsword. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Neither of them are your common swordsmen. If you don't do like I did, you'd probably end up getting sliced in 2 by either of them in no time.
Going over all their information once again, Cruchet was the first to speak again. Nodding at Garfield's response, she turned back to Julius and Wilhelm.
In addition to those 2, we believe that the Sin Archbishop of Lust is also occupying the City Hall. I imagine that other witch cultists will make an appearance there as well. Have either of you heard much about Lust?
My apologies. As far as knowledge from the Royal Knights goes, no one has ever heard of Lust. Sloth and Greed are much more famous, and Subaru should be better suited to talk about greed.
Halfway through speaking, Julius had turned to Subaru. Subaru nodded.
Having seen Greed for myself, I don't believe that the stories about him are a lie. But that Empire, he took out their strongest knight. I'm a bit skeptical about that. He's strong, but in terms of combat prowess, he's such an amateur. I could match him, although he can negate any attack.
And that wasn't due to your own strength?
Not this time. The Sin Archbishops had a crawl between them. Although Wrath engulfed Greed in flames, it didn't hurt him in the slightest. Even his clothing was untouched. He didn't even break a sweat.
Regulus's authority could easily be dubbed as invincibility. How convenient. If that were true, then the City Hall Raiders would eventually be forced to face the worst of enemies. Though he wanted to believe that it was not such an unreasonable and straightforward ability.
If only we had our strongest, we wouldn't have to worry about it.
Reinhard would never be absent when innocent civilians are in such danger. I think that he may be facing a problem that leaves him unable to move. It is possible that, much like us, he has been caught in an encounter with the other witch cultists.
Only Julius seemed to understand what was passing through Subaru's mind at that moment. Prior to the start of all of this, Elp and Reinhardt had come into contact with Heinkel. He could only hope that the obnoxious idea which had taken root in his mind upon hearing about their meeting was wrong.
Other than that, there's something that I want to confirm. The name Lust called herself Capella Emerada Lagunica. Why would she possibly call herself part of the Lagunican royal family?
She's gotta be joking. Everybody knows that the whole royal family has died.
It might not be misinformation. It seems too premature to dismiss it as just a prank.
Ricardo and Cruchet gave Subaru differing opinions. The witch cult being what it was, either possibly was worth considering. The poor character of this Lust could be clearly heard in her voice. Prank, as Ricardo had said. It's likely indeed. She could also prove to be an enigma. However, in the face of those different proposals, Wilhelm raised a hand.
I do recall one thing.
What is it?
Although I do not know of any Capella, I have heard a little about the reputation of Emerada Lagunica. That does not necessarily mean there is any direct connection, but there was indeed someone named Emerada in the history of the royal family of Lagunica.
Surprised by this, everyone's eyes grew wide as Wilhelm pondered with his hand to his chin.
Her name traces back to before the Demi-Human War, before I joined the army, so around 50 years ago. At the time, the Lagunica royal family had someone very beautiful and very clever by the name of Emerada Summer.
And Lust called herself Emerada. For what purpose?
As for her intentions, I do not know either. Only, I believe that Emerada became ill at a young age. But a state funeral was never held in her honor.
Neglecting to hold a funeral for the death of a member of a royal family was somewhat strange. Subaru tilted his head, and Wilhelm attempted to explain.
The reason given was that the times were rough. However, the real reason, that the public sentiment was against it.
The people didn't?
Although Emerada was beautiful and very intelligent. Her nature, was extremely cruel, and an immeasurable amount of darkness laid within her. Therefore, even the royal family of Lagunica regarded her as a heretic. Even the news of her death was hidden from the public for a while.
With only an unconfirmed testimony, saying such dubious words about the kingdom he had once served probably left a bitter taste in Wilhelm's tongue. His words had begun to waver in the second half of his explanation, and everyone had seen for themselves Lust's terrible character.
I'm sure it's not her, but Lust called herself Emerada.
An attempt to slander the royal family of Lagunica, and some harassment in poor taste of those who knew Emerada Summer's name. I think it's a rather roundabout way to induce suspicion.
The result of Wilhelm's conclusion was a sigh of relief. Unlike those with little loyalty to the kingdom such as Subaru, Garfield, and Ricardo, feelings of Cruchet, Wilhelm, and Julius were unfathomable. Such ungrateful, vicious ridicule towards the royal family was certainly not permissible.
In spite of that, Capella.
Any thoughts on that name?
Julius turned his attention sharply as he spoke, noticing Subaru's bitter expression.
Nothing. It's just...
After a brief pause, Subaru scratched his head as he continued.
It's not just Capella. Regulus and Sirius too. Come to think of it, even Betelgeuse. But it's hard for me to believe it makes sense. It can't be. It's...
Cut the crap, Captain. Tell us already. What's so special about their names?
It's no big deal. But it's just... You could kind of say that they have the same name as the stars in my hometown. Or something like that.
Name of the stars, is it?
Response to Subaru, Cruchet widened her eyes, looking deeply interested. Seeing that everyone else shared her reaction, Subaru scratched his head.
Don't give me strange looks, okay? In my hometown, all of the stars were given names, and the Sin Archbishops just happened to share their names. I quite enjoy learning about the stars and their stories, so I know some extra details.
Really, you have quite the unusual hobby. Stars, huh?
Just so you know, my name Subaru also comes from the stars. But that's not important right now. That's all I have to say. Sorry if it's boring.
Feeling embarrassed, Subaru attempted to shake the inquisitive eyes of the one staring at him. However, Cruchet's rejected Subaru's attempts to end the conversation.
Please, wait, Subaru-sama. Is that all there is to those star names? It just so happens that their names are coincidentally the names of your stars? Is that all?
You think that's not all?
For example, could the roots of their names be the names of the stars that Subaru-sama knows about? From the reason of their founding to the activities they carry out, everything about the witch cult is shrouded in many layers of mystery. We cannot easily discard something that they may share a connection with.
Subaru, although surprised at Cruchet's unexpected questioning, was still lost in his own thoughts. Really, Subaru had always believed that the star-related names had been more than mere coincidence. This was, after all, a different world. There would be no reason for the names of the stars Subaru knew to have disseminated here. But could they say with absolute certainty? This very place, Prestella, Subaru had witnessed Japanese house architecture being replicated under the guise of Wafu architecture. Hiragaki, Okomayaki, and perhaps even the Kansai dialect were cultural landmarks established by Hoshin's own hand. Perhaps the founding of the witch cult had some roots in modern knowledge known to Subaru. The name the Sin Archbishops after the stars was a tasteless endeavor in practice.
Betelgeuse, Regulus, Sirius, Capella.
Correct, Subaru. You said that there were anecdotes related to the names of the stars. What kind of stories are those? Maybe there is a connection somewhere.
Anecdotes.
He dug through the thinning memories of his original world, recalling his fading knowledge about the stars. He had once deeply loved celestial illustrations. Knowing that his name's origin laid in the stars, Subaru had greedily immersed himself in drawings and constellations. He had engraved a great number of stars into his mind. And among them, there was a star with the same name as the widely detested Sin Archbishops.
The underarm of Orion, or the hand of Orion.
Huh?
Hearing the word underarm in a place she never would have imagined, Cruchet tilted her head to the side. However, Subaru did not register her reaction, approaching her and gripping her and shaking her slender shoulders.
Hand of Orion! That's right! It's called the Hand of Orion.
Subaru-sama? What? Orion's hand?
Betelgeuse. The origin of his name is a star. His authority was the unseen hand. And the star he was named after has another name. The Hand of Orion.
Was almost laughably far-fetched. Were they only related by chance? Was it merely an amusing coincidence of symbolism? A Betelgeuse, but a star named Betelgeuse. That was a familiar name to Subaru. A small mismatch had been the reason he had yet to notice it.
Sirius is the one who burns and the one who shines. And she can use fire magic. That's not subtle at all. At most, it's literal. Regulus is the little king. Isn't that exactly like that bastard's self-centered values? And Capella is...
Capella is...
Female goat! A female goat! Capella's a female goat!
Digging through his memory, Subaru searched for some meaning relationship between the mythos of the stars and the Archbishops of Sin. A smirk emerged on Subaru's face, showing off his excitement in finding a meaning to the connections. Instead, listening to Subaru's answer, Cruchet kept her brow pressed down while holding his shoulder. She looked to the other four people, who also wore complex expressions.
Orion's underarm.
Something that shines?
Small king?
The hell's a female goat?
With the reaction of the four people who tilted their heads, Subaru belatedly realized that his discovery was far more useless than he had first thought.
Subaru-sama, I apologize. It seems that my thoughts have led us astray.
Yes, even Cruchet looked sorry. The attempt to relate the name of the stars, as well as their origin, and the names of the Sin Archbishops had failed spectacularly. However, he had no time to spend lamenting that failure. No more time could be wasted before launching a blitzkrieg operation, which time was of essence. As a result, they attacked after their abilities and combat styles were shared and discussed between them. Being on the safe side, the members of the Iron Fang, who had accompanied Julius and Cruchet, had gone ahead as a scouting force, ensuring that the way to the City Hall was clear. The six of them would arrive safely.
Yeah, it's just like that last time. Nothing's changed.
Nose twitching, Garfield confirmed the lack of any new enemy presences. According to what he had said, he had been ambushed after crossing the road straight ahead, as he was about to enter the City Hall. Neither Garfield's nose nor Subaru's eyes found the silhouettes he had mentioned. Those who were not present, they could just take the City Hall and move on, just as Subaru wanted to celebrate a lack of enemies. Garfield equipped his shields in both hands, and Ricardo held his mache in a battle-ready stance. Wilhelm, on the other hand, eyed the whole of the plaza with the calmness of a tranquil lake. What would it mean for those three if there was no enemy in sight? In particular, Wilhelm surely had much as he needed to confirm.
This area is completely open. Although my quasi-spirits have been sent to patrol it, they found no path we could sneak along. It seems that our only option is to approach directly.
Julius had 6 quasi-spirits following him. It sent those to scout out their surroundings, then report back to the group. The location was especially unpleasant, so it was difficult to launch an offensive. And as it was likewise difficult to defend.
Can't you send your spirits inside to scout? Just knowing how many enemies there are, and the building's general layout, would make our job that much easier.
Apologies, but my buds are still unable to perform an order that complicated. And it is possible that the enemy is not unable to detect the presence of spirits. So that would be difficult.
That wouldn't be your fault. Still, that's a shame. It would have been really helpful.
Knowing the circumstances inside the City Hall itself would mean that their turmoil would possibly escalate. That said, waiting would only cause the situation to worsen. Though the Witch Cult had claimed that they were going to make a request during the next broadcast, there was no way they could negotiate with them.
Then, just as we planned, although the enemy has combat effectiveness on their side, we'll take one person at a time. We'll handle this quickly, and then get rid of the guy who's occupying this place.
Although that is optimistic thinking, I do look forward to our success.
Julius gave an ironic response to Subaru's speech, and the party took off. Without needing a signal, they ran up the straight road, toward the plaza in front of the City Hall. No sign of an enemy appearing from anywhere. Garfield ran in the lead, followed by Wilhelm and Julius. Ricardo followed them, and Cruchet and Subaru held the rear. His right leg felt, for all intents and purposes, fine. Though it was in a strange state of feeling no sensation, he could run without hindrance.
They're here!
2 figures fell upon Garfield, who stood in the lead. As the groups witnessed the large blades and the slender longsword flutter in the air that composed the surprise attack, Crochet gave a courageous shout and drew her own weapon at the rear. One blow. 100 Feld was unleashed. The strike that was unleashed, cutting diagonally towards the enemy, was a special attack by Crochet that was augmented by her divine protection of wind reading. Anything within her field of vision, even at a great distance, could be struck by one of her blades of wind. It was Crochet's long-range swordplay, which had even made a dent in the White Whale's magically enhanced defenses. The sound of steel on steel rang out, and the giant and woman whirled away.
Did you get them?
No, they deflected it! No hit!
Surprise attack to counter the surprise attack and failed to make contact. 2 black-garbed figures landed on the stone pavement, having dealt with the wind blade using their own steel blades and turned around. 2 giant blades and a single-edged longsword from top to bottom. They were indeed both clad in the despicable black garb of the witch's cult. 2 figures did not show any side effects from the previous attack. Tilted their bodies forward slightly, about to kick off from the ground. However, for that,
although you blocked Krush-sama's blow, can you take this?
3 different colors glowed from above, the light emitted from the spirits pouring down upon the witch's cultists. Only 6 quasi-spirits, working groups of 3, cast a magic attack on the giant and woman both. The magical light, which Subaru had never seen before, applied an appalling pressure to the 2 opponents. Tremendous pressure forcing them to kneel. As the enemy was unable to withstand that force, Garfield and Wilhelm rushed the woman, while Ricardo swung his blade over his head as he leapt towards the giant.
Take this!
Here! It's over.
A flash of silver, emanating an overwhelming pressure, the sword demon took off, aiming to run his blade across the opponent's body. The mache, driven by that uncanny physical strength held by Ricardo, the Beastman slashed down in a straight line. Not to cut, but to smash the unprotected head. They could strike a kill at this interval. kneeling woman turned her sword in her grip and slashed at Garfield and Wilhelm's legs, immediately dodged by leaping. The woman followed with the same trajectory, twisting to stretch a leg around Garfield's neck, moving him to the range of Julius's magic. Entering Garfield's blind spot, the woman protected herself from any magical effects using Garfield as a shield. Then, her knee shattered Garfield's nose as she grabbed his left arm with her free hand and used his shield to block Wilhelm's flash. This profound display of skill, Garfield cried out in pain. Wilhelm cursed. Breaking their stalemate, he delivered a roundhouse kick to the old swordsman, placing Garfield in the process. Though her movement should have been constrained, her blow was powerful enough to send Wilhelm flying. Since he had regained his balance, she had already made another half-turn on the spot, delivering a swift follow-up kick. Meanwhile, Ricardo's attack had been stopped just short of the giant's head. Still kneeling due to the magical effects cast by Julius, the giant had readily discarded the big sword he held in both hands to block the hatchet block that approached his skull. Then, he lifted his unguarded hand and brought them between his head and the hatchet.
Idiot, it's over!
As the obvious result of his flawed judgment, his arms would be severed. Even though Ricardo's machete was blunt, it contained incredible momentum and power. Giant's thick arms were amputated by the impact of the blow, and his upper arms flew through the air as black blood spewed forth. Ricardo stepped back and swept the mache up, needing to bring it down upon the giant who had lost both his arms. A slash powerful enough to knock down a gigantic tree would vaporize the giant's neck. However, the giant simply used his extra arms to retrieve his broadsword from the stone pavement, deflecting the fatal blow with merely one of his swords.
What?
A curtain of blood sprayed forth as the stumps of the giant's amputated arms, nullifying the effects of the magic that Julius had cast. Now freed, the giant was again capable of the agile action that betrayed his enormous form. Even though he had lost one of his arms in a split-second decision, he had the determination needed to discover the effects and weaknesses of the magic spell, and to act accordingly. Ricardo gradually became unaware to withstand the fury of blades that followed. The giant was far too skilled with those titanic cleavers, and far too battle-hardened. Even though he had managed to knock away the pair of broadswords, Ricardo had one of the giant's other hands and thrust it into his torso. He groaned at the power of that blow, and another fist collided with his face, sending the Beastman's burly body backwards. Against the three opponents, who were now on the defensive, the woman and the giant raised their weapons, weapons of special kind, with clear intent to kill. Black Line finally having caught up with those other three.
Combination magic! Falgoa!
Hit! Come on, please!
Julius's incantation ushered wind, and a shade of vermilion mixed with a vortex of air. The resulting tornado of flame swiftly met the woman trying to chase Garfield, the latter jumping back to safety. Then, with overlapping voice almost resembling a prayer, Crusade's wind blade and Subaru's whip whistled through the air, striking the giant's body. His huge form shook due to the diagonal slash, and a painful wound appeared on the giant's chest, courtesy of the source of that shrill sound. However, neither injury was a serious matter for them. Even so, he had succeeded in stopping the giant's assault. The fallen Ricardo kicked up at the giant's jaw.
Ha! You were asking for it.
Is this really the time to say that? Fall back, Ricardo!
Hurt by the momentum of the kick's release, Ricardo spun backwards, retrieving his hatchet and wiping his face of blood, before retreating to join Crusade's Subaru, ready to confront the giant again. Glancing to the side and seeing that the woman had been enclosed in a tornado flame, Subaru's eyes involuntarily widened.
What's that? You could actually use such spectacular magic?
It is merely a bluff. I am not proficient enough to make it lethal just yet. And in fact...
Julius replied bitterly. The spectacle before their eyes confirmed his words. The woman bathed in that tornado of flame, the sword in her hand flashed. Part of that wind was pierced by her slight movement. Unbalanced, the tornado collapsed and faded. The woman's elegant, peerless swordplay, and the giant's own special physiology.
You're kidding.
The front of his back robe was opened, and the giant's many arms were revealed. He nonchalantly picked his severed arms back up from the ground and pressed them against his stumps, as blood and flesh knit with a sickling sound. A mere moment later, the giant's formerly missing arms were reattached, with only scant traces of the injury remaining. As if confirming that healing, he took his large blades in them again, waving them around as if to test the feeling. Both looked undefeatable.
By contrast, it's clear that our Blitzkrieg failed.
Looking sideways, Garfield and Wilhelm, who had escaped using Julius's magic support, were receiving first aid to their injuries, by way of Garfield's healing magic. However, the reality set in that Garfield and Wilhelm, working together, had been soundly defeated. That sense of despair could not easily be erased. But it would be a mistake to say that their situation was completely hopeless.
Although close combat is unreliable, long-range attacks could still be effective.
Julius's magic, Crusade's Blade of Wind, and even Subaru's whip had connected. The last one would be all that helpful. Even if it had indeed worked, the other two attacks certainly had a chance to turn the tide. At Subaru's confident and expectant gaze, both Julius and Crusade nodded. Garfield and Wilhelm also understood the power of their opponents in close combat. At the start, Ricardo had not held any designs to face either of them alone. The melee fighters would interfere with their enemies' movements, and any gaps would be filled with magical attacks. It was likely the best way to minimize injuries and achieve victory. Unity of the entire party would start the pace of the battle again. Then, at that moment,
chaotically, grudgingly, a mad triple time! What kind of garbage pieces of meat like you can so foolishly, ugly, superficially dare to live, in the words of this elegant, patient lady?
abruptly piercing the battlefield was an inconspicuously sharp laugh. However, upon hearing that voice, everyone understood the appearance of its owner meant the situation had taken a turn for the worst. Therefore, Subaru shuddered and shifted his gaze around, searching for that figure. Where was she? Where's that laughter coming from?
Where are you looking, you dull, dumb, dim-witted pieces of shit? It's because of this foolishness that you can't be saved. Come on, open your filthy eyes wide and think hard with your empty heads. Then maybe this gentle lady will show mercy to your filthy souls.
No way.
Crochet had drawn a hoarse breath. Her amber eyes were fixed overhead. The sinking feeling of understanding, Subaru followed her gaze, expecting to see lust at the end of it. The line of sight pointed to the roof of the city hall, far away. The place was the origin of the loud ridicule poured down upon them, as if the owner of that voice was looking down upon ants from a great height. In fact, that was more or less the situation. That was because...
Really? That face! That stupid face! You saved it just for me! If so, it is a wonderful imitation of a foolish ape that this kind lady would like to give you praise! Or would you prefer saliva? You'd be very happy with my precious saliva, right? So you pieces of rubbish, it must be a coveted treasure, right?
Rash's laughter echoed through the air as Subaru glanced upward. The giant and swordsman did not have the slightest reaction as an ally joined against their fellow opponents. On the battlefield, Lust appeared, and...
Once more! This lovely lady is the Sin Archbishop of the Witch Cult, representing Lust!
As the name of Lust was announced, Black Dragon looked upon them with a smile.
I am Capella Emerald Lieutenant Kasama! Die, you rotten slabs of meat!
And that ends Arc 5, Chapter 33, and our reading. Good fucking job, everyone. Give yourselves a pat on the back, guys. Great work.
Amazing job, everyone!
Things aren't over yet. There's still ominous music.
No, we're gonna keep that.
We have lots to talk about.
Holy shit, we do. Holy
It's a lot.
shit. First off, as much as I want to keep Cedric's art up, we do have a light novel illustration unlocked. So let us get to that.
Cedric. Oh, looks sick. Thank you, Cedric.
It really, it's a great piece.
It
of
was
art.
amazing,
So,
Cedric.
Dragon, huh?
Yeah, Capella's on. Yeah, Dragon.
I just wanted to make sure we were going full Fire Emblem. I wasn't so sure if we were going there yet, but I'm glad the confirmation. Yeah, we've gone full dragon.
Look at Subaru's fucking leg in this illustration. My guy
his
is
leg
like
is fucking
fucked.
busted.
Yo, he's like serious now.
So first off, we did have a donation in the middle of that reading, $100 donation, might I add. Error, you donated 100. I appreciate all the hours of content you guys create. Keep it up. You guys are way too supportive. This is fucking crazy. It's the first day of the month. Christ.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
We'll
crazy
start it
stuff.
off with a bang.
Well, at least you guys got to see our first batch of artwork that we're putting out for these readings. That's a good thing.
Love the fact that we have. So wait, one like super crazy thing. We have to give Garf some credit for the fact they were holding back with Garf, right? But he still fought both of them.
Yeah.
Can we give him some credit for that? That is
Somewhat.
ridiculous.
I'll give him
Yeah,
some
these guys
credit.
are ridiculously
Mimi's
strong.
there too.
Oh my gosh!
I gotta
Wilhelm-
say, I think.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I gotta say, I think Garfield's slowly becoming one of my favorite characters.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. This
definitely.
arc really makes him shine.
The whole
He's in the front of that pack. Look at him. He's leading the.
Oh, we're
leading
blocking
the
him.
fight.
Yeah, he is.
We'll just keep talking over his
We'll just
face.
keep talking over
We're
his
all
face.
Garfield. Oh my god! I think the best part about like some of the cast when Teppei writes them is when we have moments with Garfield, it still feels like he's a protagonist at a certain point. Like the switch over between him and Subaru, when Subaru literally touches his shoulder, we're like, okay, it's back to Subaru time. But it didn't feel off being in Garfield. It's not one of those shows where you're like, oh, we're with Garfield again. We're like, oh, this is his part. Like we're actually excited to see how he thinks and how he talks, how he sees the situation, because they're different enough. Friends, so they have some similar traits, but they're different enough.
Have we been going for 3 hours? What? Oh my
It's
god.
been a longer stream. Yeah, we're almost at like
What the
30ish for me.
Mac-kun. Shout out to Mac-kun for not fucking cracking.
Mac-kun is doing great.
Oh,
Best Mac-kun.
Don't replace me, Hollow.
It's too late. It's gonna happen.
So, Hollow, how you liking the new form of your lovely lady?
Yeah, I don't know who that is. Sorry, I like Minerva.
Oh, no, you don't get to switch now. You used to make fun of me for liking a blonde who turned into a different kind of.
This is a whole different scale, my guy.
Well, I mean, look,
Oh,
I'm
come
just
on, be
saying,
like Donkey.
you know, that more of her means more of her personality. You might fall deeply in love. You never know.
Listen,
right?
Listen.
I've told you this before.
Come
but
on,
if you lie to
Hollow.
me,
Hey,
I will murder
you know,
you.
you guys can fly together. I can show you the whole thing.
Oh, this is like
You do the whole
Kobayashi's Dragon
spiel.
Maid? Fuck yeah, then it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, she becomes the dragon. Yeah,
That's-
that's a real form or human form. Yeah.
That's my Toru, okay.
Mhm.
I'm down.
I gotta say, I can't imagine a dragon sounding like Capella. Like when you imagine a dragon, you imagine like deep
pieces of
wisdom
shit.
voice.
Yep,
I'm here to kill you.
Yeah.
Creatures.
How hard is it for them to move that gigantic mouth that quickly to get all that sound out?
I'm
Top-
like I imagine. You know how like I don't know if you know. Like, sometimes in anime where like somebody is speaking like a dragon or whatever, and their mouth just hangs open, and they're already
just
like
talk.
moving their mouth at all, and they talk. Yeah.
In the top
Excuse this telepathy.
top 5 characters Eminem won't beat in a rap off.
I think she's like
Regulus.
projecting her voice like that. 'cause,
Regulus
like,
would win.
Yeah.
do you think a dragon could make those noises? No, I don't think so. With its
I'm
throat,
gonna
no.
believe that she's just so powerful that the answer is yes.
Can we
Her
just
mouth's
admire
so
the
fast you can't see it.
the light novel illustration really quick? How Julius is fucked off in the very back. Like he's
Along with Subaru.
I mean, he's the ranged attacker.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
crushed. Yeah.
We have like an actual like I don't know how like aware you guys of like RPGs and stuff, but usually in like a Final Fantasy game, you can switch your party members to have like the mages in the back and then the warrior classes in the front. And I just think it's hilarious that we're literally getting that. Where
Yeah, that's
Subaru's
what
like,
it is.
we can't.
Yeah.
This combat's not working, but we can attack from here. Just stay behind.
Kyle's, you're
So-
going wild muting people. What's happening?
You know,
Sorry, lots of people have spoiled the next few chapters for me, so anything that makes me go, hey, I don't know this yet, I just
Yeah,
delete.
don't
Or
worry
if
about
it's
it.
being geared towards
Hey, you gotta
Capella,
do what you gotta do.
Reign of
But a
Kyles
couple
is
of
here.
Mako things.
Perfectly fine.
You know,
But I would
Long
like to
live the
sorry.
Kyles.
No, you're fine.
Yeah,
Amelia, the dictator. She's here.
something
It's
to.
Marlian now.
So would we call Julius a white mage?
Yeah,
Nah, I think it's still.
not
No, he's
really.
still
He's a
technically
red
Felix would be
mage.
the white. Felix would be the white mage.
Yeah. No, you're right. Red mage is
White
better.
mage.
Red mage works. Yeah.
Yeah, red mage.
We're all exposing
red
how
mage.
big of nerds we are, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Look, I love Final Fantasy. You can make fun of me as much as you want. I'm okay, dude.
This
too.
entire chapter, I was just imagining that the squad was like a league team and they were getting dunked on by the two NDP carries.
When I screamed my line, there was a pound from the door next to me, like the wall next to me. If I offended you, I'm sorry. I don't care. I'll scream louder.
Okay, well, there's something we really do need to talk about here.
What's
What
up,
Subaru brought up in this chapter.
Oh,
Star.
yeah, the stars, yeah.
Stars.
Star.
Okay, wait, so
Yeah,
Al's
I'll
also
take
a star, right? So, if Al's also a star, then doesn't that mean that all of the witch cultists are otherworlders, and that the witch cult was founded by otherworlders?
Well,
Maybe founded by
Founded
otherworlders
because
Other
names.
we see in season 2 that Pandora is the one that names Geese when he becomes.
Yeah, but
I was literally
But she doesn't give him the name Petal Geese.
Yeah,
that's-
true.
we can assume. I mean, like, I don't know about you guys, but it seems kind of weird if that's the case because what we know about the witch cultist history so far, it almost
This
seems
is very
like-
tied to the world of ReZero.
Yeah, it's almost
I
weird.
don't think. Did she really give him the name? Because I feel
No,
like
no,
I
no.
remember like going back through
The
that
title of
chapter
Sloth.
and like reading over it, and there was like. She was
No.
forced to, like,
She didn't give
use
him-
it, but
she
it
didn't
wasn't like
give him the-
explicitly like this is your new name.
She didn't give him the name Betelgeuse. She
Yeah.
gave him the title Sloth.
Yeah.
The tittle.
Oh,
on this.
so one thing to note here, also that's noted in this chapter, which is something you might want to look out for, is the fact that Betelgeuse is not the correct pronunciation of the star, and it's mentioned in this chapter. It's Betelgeuse.
Yeah.
So it's a mispronunciation of that, but all the others are
I
accurate.
just called it. I called it Beetlejuice.
So-
called a lot of names. It's fine.
It has a lot of pronunciations.
I was gonna be like, how
So-
dare you not know the name of these stars that are like?
Well, think about it like this, right? It's Juice. They call him Juice, right? This is his nickname. Beetlejuice. It's like, okay, that makes sense. And then Betelgeuse. It's like, okay, well, Beetlejuice, but it sounds kind of weird. But that's how it is, I guess.
Now, analyzing a bit more the stars and the meanings and such, as Subra brings up, Regulus is Little King. His star is the Little King, or Regulus, which comes from the Leo constellation.
Yeah.
Now, he mentions how it's quite apt for him to have a name that literally means Little King because of his arrogant personality.
Little shit.
It could refer to the fact that, you know, he's like kind of like a greedy king almost. He has that kind of authority.
Well, he's small in stature as well, but he's
Yeah.
very strong. You know.
Yeah, it's kind of like mighty. And lions are typically associated with power or bravery as well. And
Yeah,
royalty.
Leo lion.
Speaking
right?
about lions, we were talking about earlier. I think you guys said something. What is Crucius Camp's animal? Is it a lion specifically?
Yes, it is a
Yes.
lion.
So funnier
Um,
enough,
the-
he
the ro-
blew
the
the arm
royal
off the
fam-
lion.
And yes, this is even funnier as well because the symbol of the royal family, I believe, is also a lion. Like
Yes.
the previous royal
It's
family.
on the guard of her sword too, I believe, right?
That's separate. That's like literally her house's sigil is like a
Gotcha.
lion.
Yeah,
But I'm pretty sure it's
That's
I'm
what
pretty
it
sure it's the same for the royal family as well, like the previous royal family.
Yeah.
So that's
We saw
that's
here
also
today
another
they are proud
connection
retainers.
of this world in the
Right,
sense
right.
that he's royalty, you know.
Gotcha.
I don't know if
in-
it's said
in that
yet,
sense.
but the Karsten family is a branch family of the royal family.
Is that true? That's what I was assuming.
Yeah,
That's,
it's talked about a lot
They
in
seem like they're
the
very much
X1, but I think
retainers.
it's like it's said once in like
Yeah, I assume because they both had the line that the Carsten family was a branch family of the Lagunicas, but
Yes,
I
it
didn't
is.
actually know. That's awesome. Thanks for letting me know that, Gold.
Hey,
So there's one part I was gonna say.
go for it.
So now this basically kind of gives Subaru a possible advantage for the sake that he is okay. From goat to dragon is a bit off.
Okay,
but
now this is something else we're gonna analyze as well. Okay,
there might be
Yeah.
implications I was gonna go into there.
so Capella, the star roughly translates to little goat in Latin, I believe.
Small goat.
Now, what is Latin as a language associated with?
You just go ahead and say it.
Well, I'm
The Bible.
for this. Just say it.
The Bible.
Say it. Yeah.
The Catholic
So
Bible.
are you going to go for, were you going
Now.
for the angle
The
of
mark of the
like,
beast.
because of the goat?
The
Yeah, I
goat.
was going to go there. Yeah.
So the little goat, and the goat is the most prominent symbol, apart from the snake, of the devil in the Bible. And
Outside of the last one you're about to mention.
What the devil is best known for is shape-shifting or form changing.
Right. Yeah.
And deception. But separately from the Bible alignment, goats are in a lot of other mythologies associated with fertility goddesses.
Right,
And
that's true.
what is Capella, the Archbishop of?
Lust. Yeah.
Lust.
Another thing to note is that a common thing is sort of in history is that when people use goats, like goat's blood, usually in reference to stuff like cults or like stuff like that, in like ritualistic
evil
sacrifices, or for killings or assassinations, stuff like that.
Also, now moving on to, we've covered Capella, we've covered Regulus. Who
Hey,
have
one more thing about Capella. I have not read ahead, but why do I feel like she has some sort of reanimation jutsu, like from Naruto, based on
She was a
how?
Orochimaru.
Yeah, because his arm just like recovered, like how the reanimated bodies in Naruto just recover.
No,
and there's also the
you're right.
possibility that the second person might be Reinhardt's wife. Sorry, not
Yeah.
Reinhardt.
Wilhelm.
Wilhelm.
Reinhardt's no.
Let's move on to both Betelgeuse or Betelgeuse and and Sirius, because they're connected. Now, Betelgeuse is the brightest star in the hand of Orion, which makes sense if we connect it to Unseen Hand. Now, do you know what constellation Sirius is aligned with and is the brightest star of?
Not in particular. No,
I believe it's called the Hunting Dog of Orion. It's the constellation that
major.
follows Orion in the sky.
So I'm pretty sure. I think you're right. Yes.
Yes, and Sirius is obsessed with Betelgeuse,
Yeah, she's a loyal follower and companion of Betelgeuse. of
almost
course.
to the sense of a pet or a dog.
Yes.
And Sirius is, I believe, one of, if not the brightest star in the sky, which is
The
why
fire,
she's associated with fire. Yes.
Yes. So
I
the
wonder
stars
if you
and
could
names
almost-
obviously have meetings. Yes.
I was gonna say, I wonder if you can almost make a connection between the fact that I know she has the chains and a leash in almost of a sense. I don't know if that would work. But again, this is Subaru's best chance of having any sort of intel on the enemies he's going to deal with in the future is his own knowledge of the stars and which sucks, how seriously he took that or not. Clearly, based off what he said, he had a great interest in it, but being away from his world for so long, and he's most likely not. Does ReZero, do they ever state whether or not they have stars in a sense? Like, I know we don't have the.
So in the Memory Snow OVA, it's pretty much established that the stars in the night sky are different to
they're different. They're just completely different.
to Subaru's world, which is why
When he
when
looked up in
tries
the
to-
sky, he's like, "Oh, is that?" And he's like, "No, it's not even." No.
Yeah. So now, this is where we get really interesting with her. Was Subaru. Subaru is the Japanese name for the star cluster, the Pleiades. Now, there are 7 stars that make up the Pleiades. What is there also 7 of?
Sins. Yeah.
Yep.
Huh.
What about Aldebaran?
He's the only one not given a direct star name. It's a cluster. Keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. As you said, what about
Aldebaran is the brightest star in the Taurus constellation. The bull.
Yes. Huh.
Yes.
It's like you need decent information, but you have to be in Subaru's position. So now, if you guys ever do those videos, you're like,
Yeah,
what would you
only-
do if you were Subaru?
only Subaru
You'd be
knows.
screwed.
Well, yeah, only Subaru can put this all together in this world because he has that information from his world.
He has that information, and that's all connected. And the reason he, as it stated in the chapter, he hadn't put it together yet is because Petalgeese is not how you're supposed to say it. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you imagine
Here's
it
a
from like somebody like Al's perspective, maybe it's sort of like what you're just saying just now, Lightning, where it's like maybe Al just has no clue about like any of the names or the history of the stars, and he's in this world. It's not like he can put it together like Subaru can.
Definitely like a niche hobby. It's like if we're, like, into aquariums, and we're like, "Don't you know what a blue tetra is?" And he's like, "I don't know what the freaking tetra."
We got some fun. We got some well building here in the chat. So the Carston line insignia used to be the Lagunica family's insignia before they contracted with Volcanica. At which point, the Lagunica's family's insignia became a dragon, and House Carston inherited the lion sigil.
So again, still interesting connections there, but at the same time, now we know it's just specifically with her.
Yes.
Yeah, and since she wants her whole shtick is like no dragon, right? Specifically.
Yeah, she doesn't want the dragon for many reasons. Yes.
This is quite.
What I will say is also that what was I going to say? Bugger. Fuck. What was I
pretty
going to say?
The only thing I got to write with this was Subaru is a nerd. That's what I wrote.
Yes. Now this may have been cut from either the web novel to the light novel, or from the light novel to the anime in Arc 4. But I believe it stated that the reason Subaru is obsessed with the stars and astrology in particular is not just because his name's connected. It's because his parents got him into it. Like that, his parents were interested in astrology, and that's why they named him Subaru.
Yes.
Oh, yes. And we have one more Archbishop name that we haven't heard for a long, long time. Lai Batankaitos.
Oh, right, yes.
Batankaitos refers to, I believe it's, I can't remember the constellation name, but it's associated with a whale or a sea creature.
I wonder what that would be.
And what does he call the whale in the Arc 3 interlude?
His pet?
Their pet.
Yeah.
I mean, gluttony, it's kind of easy to make the connection there, you know?
Yes.
I remember the name of the whale name. Luckily, the only thing that's ever helped me with this is Beyblade.
white whale.
They actually had those names specifically, and I used this one, so I'm trying to remember at the moment.
Kiki also makes a good point in the server chat as well. So far, all of the names of the archbishops refer to the brightest star in that constellation.
Okay, guys, let's do some research. We can figure out the name of the Archbishop of looks at notes.
You guys ready to go start?
Envy,
Pride?
Pride?
Right now.
I mean, now this also refers to
Ventress,
a theory we can come up with now, like on the spot right now. We know that the seat of Pride is vacant within the witch cult at the moment. And
Is Envy not vacant?
And Geese referred to Subaru as Pride, but that could be wrong. And the reason we can say that is because we know of Subaru's connection to the Witch of Envy now more.
Yeah.
It could possibly be that he's got the witch factor of envy, which is what gives him return by death.
That seems like a fair bet, I would say.
Yeah.
If I was going to place a bet, I might put
that
it on that one.
That would mean that he doesn't have the witch factor of Pride, but that means that the witch factor of Pride is still somewhere in play in the ReZero universe right now. And the best person to fit that role would be Aldebaran, because Aldebaran is the brightest star in the Taurus constellation, the bull.
Which is a very stubborn animal.
And stubborn animal associated with the god Zeus, the king of the gods in Greek mythology.
Isn't Aldebaran also called the Eye of Taurus? And it's
Eye of
like,
Taurus,
supposed to be
yes.
watching
The
like,
Eye of the
Subaru
bull
constellation.
Yes.
Which
and
is
it
also
watches the
interesting 'cause
Subaru
that's like the
constellation.
only character we can't see his actual eyes in, which I find.
Yes, it's almost as if referring to the fact that Aldebaran was either watching out for Subaru or waiting for him.
Yes, indeed. And also, when you think about it sort of logically, somebody said this, and I don't know if they said it quite yet, but they said, oh, Subaru did. He's like, you hear about, Priscilla's pride, and that's something that they always talk about. And it's like, if you think about it, if that's the case, if what good old Wolf is theorizing here is correct, then that would make sense if the Archbishop of Pride or somebody who has a Pride witch factor would also be related to somebody so prideful. You know?
Yes.
Someone asks here, do the witches have star names? No, they do not.
I was gonna say, do we have any other actual naming schemes, or is it specifically
the names associated with the witches are associated from mythology? So Sekhmet is a god from Egyptian mythology. Minerva is the Roman equivalent of Athena.
Oh my god, Carl. Can't do that after all the Capella simping you were doing.
Now,
you can't do it.
Okay, this is quite appropriate for Typhon. Typhon is the Titan in Greek mythology that is supposed to take on all of the gods of Olympus. It is the most dangerous monster to exist. It brings destruction and pain with its path.
Okay, and then specifically we have Owl, who is in that. Yeah, so that's a very interesting note that our Titan is also the Titans
Zeus,
are
of course.
Yeah,
Yes.
the family, upper family of the gods.
Now, also, Echidna refers to the creature in Greek mythology that is known as the mother of all monsters. Now, what is Echidna known for, apart from her greed?
Trying to create vessels for her soul, right?
And life.
Yeah.
Yes. And not being the mother of the artificial spirits.
Wait,
of
the
Beatrice.
chat is saying that the witches are actually named after asteroids.
Yeah, I think that is true. I think the exception there is Satella. Which, Tapei has said in the Q&A, the meaning of that name will be revealed in the last arc.
Which is also fine.
It's also
because
arc
she would
17 or
also be
whatever.
A character of envy, since Subaru as well does not completely fit the same category.
Yes.
So that makes sense that she would also be out.
How many arcs are there supposed to be? Didn't he say it at one point?
11.
11. Okay, 11. Okay.
You said arc
I
17
know.
earlier, and I was
Is
like,
that
oh
how many
gosh.
there's? I don't know. Yeah, but arc 11
Like,
sounds
that's
a lot
really
more
easy.
reasonable.
Yeah, there are
you-
planned 11 arcs.
We're gonna get to the very end, and your mind's gonna explode. I'm just like, oh no, not in 17 arcs, man. You gotta do that a little bit faster.
Okay.
In my lifetime, yeah. In my lifetime.
Yeah. Kids are
Kind
gonna
of
be
cool.
like, they're gonna die, come back to me in heaven, and go, Dad, I know the end of ReZero. And I'm gonna go, what happened, son? And you'd be like, you'll never believe it. And that's like where everybody's life ends. It just says the end. at the bottom. Written by Tapei.
I know Daphne is associated with Greek mythology. I do not remember off the top of my head what
I-
Daphne is from Greek mythology.
I believe you're correct. I cannot remember right now as well.
Daphne was one of the. Oh, what was it? I remember this. Sort of.
Cheating and
Vaguely.
going to Google. Would never
Yeah,
do
me
such
too.
a thing. Daphne, Greek mythology. Daughter of the river god Peneus. I cannot pronounce that. Just stop. All right, I'm just trying to read this.
Are you sure it's not
So-
Daphne from Scooby Doo?
Yeah, Daphne from
Oh
Scooby-Doo.
my
Fine,
god.
right,
Oh my god, is
I
that
understood
the-
that.
Wait,
Zoinks!
wait.
No, no, no.
ReZero and also Scooby-Doo is connected?
Oh my god.
No,
You
no,
don't make
there's
sense.
there's actually a connection here. Notice, Daphne doesn't have her glasses.
No,
I'm gonna
no.
deafen.
Now.
Please don't.
Okay, so
On character, but still okay.
other names here. We have Carmilla, I believe.
Carmilla?
Carmilla. I believe Carmilla comes from Greek mythology as well. Let me double check.
Carmilla's a vampire
Shout out to Black March.
from history. I forget what it is.
Someone else pointed out this might also be a more interesting. Typhon's moon is Echidna. So that specifically, I don't know about that. We really
And
have to-
that's
this is
why
really gonna be
she's
a
so
stream.
happy
We're
to see
going
Echidna.
This is why Wolf needs to upload videos.
And
Indeed.
Wolf, I would actually agree. As a dog man to a fellow dog man, you need to make those videos. From wolf to wolf.
Pandora. Pandora is the figure in Greek mythology that is known for opening Pandora's box.
Yeah, but
which
Hector and Greek. With the
and yes, Hector is also a figure in Greek mythology. Pandora opened the box which gave the world or mankind itself pain,
Sin.
suffering, and disease.
Which, as we already know as well, she is also trying to open a door currently. And whether
Yes.
or not she did is the question.
Yeah, and
I believe, is Hector the one associated with Troy?
Hector would be Troy.
Yes,
It's
Hector
the-
Troy,
I believe
yes.
it's the older, better
Yeah.
brother, and not Paris's older brother. who
Yeah,
ends up
Paris
dying
died
with
twice. because he kept making stupid decisions.
I remember because Hector is like associated with tragedy.
Yes,
in Greek,
specifically.
like,
Basically
and-
dies.
In
because of the fact
melancholy,
that his
yes.
brother-
which is melancholy. Yes.
Indeed. Wow, names have meanings.
Oh my gosh,
Yep.
it's like Tepe was writing and looking at stuff and doing research like an author should.
Research? What's that? Gosh.
Somebody put in
To write
all
my
caps in
story.
the chat. Why don't you make
What is world
videos?
building?
Cause I'm lazy.
You see all
Look,
those
well,
ones?
you
Those are
could
all people that
literally-
want videos.
Well, if you could literally, let's just go get you a commission of some character you like. Ram, right? We'll get Ram. We'll get the streamer Ram. Put her on a thing, and we'll just have you
Oh my
live stream and chat.
God.
We will literally. You know how many people? Look at all these people. Would you watch that chat?
Oh my
specifically?
Christ. Listen,
You
Wolf,
want
as
some
a
fun.
fellow
Like that,
ReZero content creator, I understood jack of what you just said. So put it in a video that I can watch
We'll
with
listen with
mid-rolls.
your ears. We'll listen with your ears and head and mind.
Want commission of Ram reading a book?
I mean-
like, looking down at us like judgmentally, and it's just Wolf.
Dude, there's
talking.
people who never talk in this chat that are saying one. There's lurkers saying one, Wolf.
Yeah, you have an army right now.
So
Oh my
what
God,
I will say is I have been wanting to make a video series on the stars themselves for the archbishops.
Do it.
But that I will have to do a lot of research for, and I want them to be highly edited videos with lots of quotes. And,
Hire me, I'll edit them.
I do agree with you, but I'm just gonna say this, Wolf. You're a very intelligent person. You getting half the, let's say, I'm not gonna say getting the information wrong. You don't get the full context of the information. Most people in this chat will still go, "Wow, I had no idea what you were talking about," and learn. That's all I'm saying. I think you do a good job.
Wolf,
That
I will
is one
edit
thing
your
I am worried
video.
about.
We have still
Spreading
been on this
spreading
project for a
misinformation.
reason. Like, I'm sure you'd be
Not
happy to help
misinformation.
out.
I just
That's
need
true.
Less information than most would know. I think they'd still be very happy to hear it. Like, you just enlightened me on most of that, as is. I could definitely just sit down and listen to this, especially while I work, especially while doing something. This is a very nice thing to listen to.
Why didn't we do our marathon stream today? Why?
Because you screwed yourself.
Something to
I
note.
laughed so much. Go ahead, my bad.
Yeah, sorry. Something to note is that like throughout all of this entire arc, when it comes to like, or like throughout all the arcs so far, when it comes to the relationship between characters and their names with stars and their names and their personalities in the series, whatever, it's a sort of vague outline. So like even if like what Wolf was saying is true, which most of it seems to be like
This is
like,
mostly
a
symbolic in
lie.
nature.
But a lot of it's sort of interpretive, right? Because it's sort of like extrapolating from something that's been already written. So it's sort of
Yes.
like he could be sort of right in some ways and wrong in other ways. So like if you get something wrong, or if there's something that you might disagree with, not entirely because you're like, well, what about this? It's like it's sort of a vague gesture to these like concepts, more so than that actually being like a hard fast rule for the most part.
It's open-ended, so you're welcome to interpret it however you would like.
Chat's
in-
bringing
in
up
sense,
a few good points. They're bringing up the Nearly on Red video that he made about the star
Yes,
clusters.
yes, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I already caught on to that a long time ago. Before,
Yeah.
and he was anime only, so it's,
Nearly on Red is
so
fucking
crazy.
insane with the
Yeah,
amount of shit that he knows.
I'd like to have him on sometime and talk to him because he's.
I've
Do you
actually
hear
talked to
this?
him. I've talked with him before. I have him on Discord if you guys ever want to interview him.
I mean, you should bring him in for like a stream sometime.
I've asked him
Probably
a
a
few
good
times,
stream.
but he's said that he's trying to like do a move, and he's kind of this was months ago, so I can see if he can come back on now.
Yeah,
Oh,
it'd be
wow.
good. And also,
Like, we're gonna
other
welcome the
Zero
hosting
YouTubers
company.
would be cool to have on as well.
Yeah, he's a really chill guy to bring on.
Really love ReZero too, and he's really insightful and smart about stuff like this. So.
Well, if you're gonna make your first
Very
video
nice.
about star clusters, and it's gonna literally be one of the most viewed videos for ReZero.
Oh no! My
You're gonna get more
my
views
next
than my
video
last
is
three
on
videos.
Invisible Providence, and it is associated. Well, to give a little teaser, I'll be talking about what Invisible Providence can do, what its strengths and weaknesses are, what an authority is, and where it comes from, why
Wow.
Subaru named it Invisible Providence, and also some associations and symbolism connected to Typhon, the Witch of Pride.
I really just want Wolf talking like this.
If you need an
I
editor, you have like 3 YouTubers in this call. Just saying.
Yay,
Oh.
Wolf!
Something interesting that you just brought up that I kind of think about now is like how Typhon was so happy to see Subaru, right?
Yes.
And people
And,
were like, "Oh, you're
um,
Pride," and it's like, well,
how her power interacted with him in particular, how
Yeah,
he felt
that
no
too.
pain yet he shattered because he believes himself to be a sinner even though he is not.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about their connection so closely, even after like people referencing their connection, people referencing whatever. But you have to understand that, like, for whatever reason, Subaru, I mean, throughout, actually, not even for whatever reason, it's obvious that throughout these arcs, the sins and the archbishops that are confronted with, and witches too, to an extent, are sort of replicated in the story and the narrative. So, like, for example, in the arc 2 or 3 or whatever it was, or 3, yeah.
It's
you see Subaru dealing with his emotions of sloth, and you can relate that to, you know, how that is, and then you can relate that to arc 4 with his feelings of greed and whatnot, and now you get to see in arc 5 who knows who will be dealing with what emotions or whatnot.
Yes,
we're gonna see that. Yeah.
Subaru
Now,
being a cluster has so I was gonna say Subaru being a cluster kind of gives where you could make the analogy that because all of the archbishops are just one star, they only have one aspect to them, as we see throughout the arc and we see through the character. But Subaru appealing to most of the witches in general, just because he has every aspect. Like he at one point can be a very greedy person, at
Also,
one point can be a very prideful person or slothful.
yes.
We see multiple angles from him. Go ahead.
As Lightning mentions here, something interesting to refer to is what Echidna talks about when she says that Subaru has the sloth witch factor, which is that my compatible people really do quickly adapt, don't they? Now, this we can infer from this that Subaru could possibly absorb other witch factors.
Yeah, something interesting about that is the fact that the sloth witch factor,
especially since it's one he's not very associated with as a person.
yeah, it doesn't seem like, well, something interesting is that, like, through the very beginning of the series, people thought that he was a witch cultist, that he was whatever, because of his miasma or whatever it was called. People would refer to. And when you think about it, it's like, okay, well, he's had the witch factor of envy, let's assume, from the very beginning. He has the power from Satella to return by death, right? And then only later did he get, you know, the witch factor of sloth. And he seemed to, you know, get it from not from Satella, like the translations would have you imply. No, he got it from something else. He somehow absorbed or perhaps got the sloth witch factor after beating sloth.
This is something cut from the anime, and it's a passage in the light novel. So, you actually get a scene describing what happens to Subaru after Geese dies, and should I go into detail about it, or would that?
Yeah,
be
it's never going to be said again if you don't.
I guess. Yeah. So, in this section of the light novel, after Geese dies, Subaru feels this dark feeling enter his heart, along with pity for Betelgeuse. That dark feeling is. So we can also connect this to a scene in Isekai Quartet. Have any of you seen Isekai Quartet?
Yes. Are you talking about?
Yes.
Does this have to do with Do I keep Al checking his heart specifically?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is specifically to do with Ainz Orgone looking to his heart and seeing this dark flame surrounding his heart. Now, with all of this circumstantial evidence together, we can infer that witch factor is held within someone's heart.
Well, actually, I'll do one further, because that is true. But we saw in the anime the cluster of the witch factor that Betelgeuse had is the same like naughty black mess that was in Subaru's heart when he used the authority of sloth the first time.
It wasn't. Now, this is something I will mention. I don't think it was shown in his heart. It was shown where the hand ejected from in the scene in the anime.
Yeah.
But specifically, that is the authority itself forming, not the witch factor. So,
yes, they're two different things. Yes.
They are two separate things. Yes.
So what you're saying is this plot is now becoming Kingdom Hearts. Is the first thing I thought about when you said that.
Well, it's not like I mean, I don't. it'd be convenient to have Subaru be able to eat all of the witch factors, don't you
I was
think?
gonna say you could write out the fact that Subaru might finally get that kind of OP power towards the end if he was able to do that. But how would that affect him if we already
now
saw that
this
he
is
said
now we
that's
have
some
to
darkness?
although it seems that Subaru is able to he's compatible with all witch factors, that does not mean he's compatible with the sins that come with them. And we can know this very well with the one he's already received, which is sloth. He is not a very slothful person. He is the opposite. He's very diligent. Now, Geese was the same. Now, haven't you guys realised that Geese seems much weaker than all these other archbishops we've seen so far?
Yeah.
And
He
this
forced
is
it into himself. It wasn't
this is
necessarily-
likely because he was not a very slothful person either, and
He's always
Subaru
looking
even
for the
less
witch.
slow. So he is not very compatible with the sin of sloth, which means
Because when you
that
think about
likely
the level, yeah.
I don't know if you guys, I don't remember if you guys already brought this up, but the English version of Subaru's name is Pleiades, and
Yes.
there are it's like the seven sisters of Pleiades.
yes,
Seven.
from Greek mythology. Yes.
Ooh, more.
And something to note is that, like, as far as a witch factor goes, having unseen hand isn't actually that strong of a witch factor when you
No.
look at the things. And we know that a lot of Beetlejuice's strength wasn't even for the fact that he was, an archbishop, is because the fact that he was a spirit.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was sort of like an interesting thing to note. And also, one or two hands, sorry, he had two unseen hands, isn't really anything, as Puck even said, compared to Satella, who had, how many was 500?
It was about 2,000, I believe.
Or 2,000.
Yeah. Now, this is also to show how non-compatible Subaru is with the Sin of Sloth itself. He only has one invisible providence that he can summon.
Yeah, he only has one, right? And also, something that, when I was saying that he was dealing with the feelings of sloth during the arc, I mean, it is true. Like, when he was running away, that was sort of the most slothful moment, And
But Subaru himself
he was
as a
pretending,
person.
yeah, when he was pretending not to be there mentally, when he was just running away, that was all sort of, slothful.
His moments of sloth, yeah.
Yeah, and that was the reason why he.
But when it comes to the nature of Subaru as a person, he's not a very slothful individual. And
Yeah,
that's
no.
why
Even in him being slothful, he's taking. You could just make the fact that him acting as we said in the craze, though he probably has a lot of feelings that would allow him to do so at the moment, would still be an action he's taking. Even when he was going away with Rim, in his slothful action, he is literally trying to make more actions to do. So
Yeah.
even in his own mind, in his own mindset of how I act slothful, it's still doing something.
now this is where we can get into the really deep, philosophical stuff about what sin is like in ReZero, which is a video I will make one day.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
discussing the philosophical implications of what sin is like in the ReZero world, because it's kind of different from Western interpretation in our world, if that makes sense.
Right. Also,
But-
we talked about sins and stuff, like, personally, like the archbishops and their emotions and how.
Oh yes, we talked about this at one point.
But off
didn't we, Dol?
stream, I think. But it was
Yeah.
it's something that we should bring up later. But one last thing I want to touch about confronting sloth back then. I think something interesting is that, like, I think the reason why he's so ineffective as sloth isn't because he was never slothful during that time, or he was never a slothful person. It was that, when he was running away, when he wasn't showing up at school, that was all sloth, right? He had to confront those feelings. He overcame that, and that's the reason why now it's no longer an issue. Like, he's running out of problems, he's trying to save people, he's trying to do everything in Arc 4 and whatnot. So when he makes the authority of sloth come out for the first time, it's nothing. Because he's already
very interesting.
resolved the fact.
That would mean in the beginning he already dealt with the sin in a sense before he even started the journey. That's actually very interesting.
Yeah, somebody in chat has mentioned here that compatibility of a witch factor has nothing to do with the compatibility of a sin, and that's true, yes. Subaru may be compatible with all witch factors, but he's not compatible with the sin that is associated with sin.
But one might say the power of the witch factor has to do with how compatible you are with the sun.
Yes, so it's not really a misinformation as much as it is just a bad wording when you say it as, oh, he's not compatible with the witch factor, because they're very closely associated, the sin itself and the witch factor that is associated with the sin.
You can use the witch factor even if you're not really greedy or
Yes.
slothful or whatever, but you won't
It's
be able to be
just
as powerful.
How powerful the authority you gain from it is dependent upon your association with said sin.
Being in ReZero, being a mildly terrible person obsessed with one thing might actually help you.
If you have a witch factor, yeah.
Although Sin Archbishops seem to be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just never like, oh my gosh, you have the factor of love. It's like, no, it's whatever might take away from what could further your life.
Virtue Archbishop of...
None of those. I'd be interested to see if he ever kind of, well, not says it, but like almost implies the virtues instead on other characters. Or if there is any other virtues you could apply to other characters.
This is where we get to Typhon. Typhon specifically, what does her authority do? It judges sinners.
Yeah, go ahead. Just go and do it.
It judges sinners. It judges whether or not someone believes they've committed sin, and whether or not they have actually sinned. Now, Subaru's main thematic journeys go with him like confronting the sinful parts of himself and overcoming them, or accepting them and making it part of his personality to turn it into a virtue. Now, the archbishops kind of represent the opposite of that. People that have fallen into sin and completely ignore everything else. They're people that will never be able to confront their own sins and to be able to grow because they refuse to believe that that's a thing.
Before you guys continue, we got a 20 from Ripple217. Been watching you guys since it was just Holographic and Wolf. Thanks for dedicating your time to this. The VAs are amazing, and please finish Arc 5. Thank you, thank you. No.
We're working on it. We're working on it.
That's the plan. That's the
20
plan.
out of 10. Yeah. Where you were still going with the
yeah. So, what was I talking about? Sorry.
My brain's you're going on such a trip right now. My brain's having to try to keep up. What was the last one? Different. Yes. I'm judging himself as the sinner.
Yes. Yeah, and he not only is him confronting the archbishops thematically similar to him confronting the sins within himself. That is also associated with what Typhon's goal and authority is associated with, punishing sinners. As someone who is associated with pride but perhaps is not pride, don't you think thematically he's very aligned with Typhon as a character?
Punishing the sinners, yes.
Punishing sinners.
The Sin Archbishops.
Yes.
And we know from sort of vague stuff that have come around through the anime so far with the witches and their relationship with the Sin Archbishops, they don't seem to be aligned, as far as we know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and we can sort of infer. I mean, we've sort of inferred this already. I mean, I'm not sure if I don't know this personally. I have no clue, so I'm gonna gesture this guess that Pandora is more or less one of the leaders of the Sin Archbishops, and they're opposed to at least Satella, at the very least, who ate the witches themselves. Yeah.
Which I would agree. Of thinking
this also
controller
refers to stuff we've learned previously in the arc, in the sense that the witch cult is not a united organization. Like Regulus and Sirius were at each other's throats.
Exactly.
Which really changes the impression of a cult that collectively is unified in their worship of Satella.
And it makes it a lot more easier to understand why Beetlejuice would, in that case, be obsessed with Satella. If they want to hurt Satella or do something with her abilities or whatever, who knows, right?
Yeah.
Because you heard what, what's her face? Amelia's mother's name. I forget her name right now.
Fortuna?
Fortuna was like, look what you did to my brother and his wife. Like, they said that to Pandora. So obviously they're at one point opposed to Satella, as we would guess. And in that case, it makes sense to assume that the archbishops are against her. And Beetlejuice doesn't have to be a part of that, maybe tangentially, because of how disorganized they are.
And his initiation, as we saw with season 1, or him being a part of it, was already kind of unorganized as it was. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, like he was a part of the cult beforehand, I believe, correct? But after that transformation, it's not like they've were indoctrinating him back into the gospel or however else. There's clearly a difference from how he handles his beliefs before he takes in the slothful authority. So
it's all very
Clearly
confusing
sees it
when you think
differently.
about it. Like for many different reasons, that entire part of that entire equation. Because, I mean, there's a few things, right? I don't know if people brought this up as well already. It's like, not only are these people, you know, like from different times and places, different walks of life. You know, some of them are, you know, mortal. Some of them aren't. Some of them are completely disorganized. Some of them are sort of organized now through the gospel. Somebody made the gospel at some point in time. They're against Satella, but at the same time, you know, some of them like Satella. You see Pandora's goal to unlock the seal, and you hear about what happened to Satella and whatnot. It's all just confusing, that entire mess. And also the fact that Beetlejuice was a part of the witch cult, even though they were already not really part of the witch cult yet. He was called Bishop, but he wasn't actually like a Synarch Bishop. A lot of these things are confusing.
There's a lot of extra areas to think about. And then add on, now we still have more stuff coming up with the candidates. It's not as complex as a witch cult, but just adding that into the other factors adds a lot we're already having to think about.
Yeah, whenever one of the biggest problems with ReZero, when it comes to especially the witch cultists in particular, is that everything you know immediately gets contradicted or flown out of whack. Like, you start to question things.
Yeah.
Like, you immediately have to question like 50 different things about other things that have already been established. Like, you're like, okay, so this is how the witch factor works. Okay, here's how authority works. Okay, now here's these people in relation to each other. It just gets completely confusing once you really start thinking about it.
I think what I really enjoy is
someone one before, sorry to interrupt you, Lightning. Someone mentioned in chat, speaking of Betelgeuse getting his witch factor, he mentioned Flugel when he was getting the factor. Anything special with that name? We've heard the name Flugel once before in ReZero, and that's associated with Flugel with Great Tree. The Sage Flugel is the name.
And he's the sage. Yeah, he was the sage. Yeah, that sealed Satella, as far as that we know.
ReZero turned you into conspiracy theorist. You know, if you looked from the outside and didn't know it was associated with a story, learning like all the mythology and associated stuff, you would really think that someone is into some.
I mean, ReZero's mythology is the craziest there is in like fantasy, in my opinion, in terms of its
I
depth.
want to go to Tepei's house, and he probably just has posters everywhere, and he's like, "You guys don't even see what I'm seeing right now."
Yeah, he's like, I'm on level 10, you're on level 3.
Oh my gosh. No, yeah. I feel like the best part that the show has going for it is still somehow it's focusing. Like season 1 is basically mostly focused on Subaru's character, but the sense of scale you get with ReZero is always like it's great. Like it's a breath of fresh air when you first see it, especially when we start off the second half after Subaru does the basic isekai thing of I saved everybody from the mansion. Woo! After the world starts falling apart again, what he does, traveling back to the mansion just shows you there's so much stuff he just does not know. And we are on that same journey of now that we've had somebody taken away by Gluttony or by the whale, we're still trying to figure out more stuff about the witch cultists. We're still trying to see everything that's going on. How can we save everyone? The plot mirrors itself, but not in a way that feels tired in a sense.
Yeah, I would like to touch on this real quick, and then we'll go into one last thing, I think, for the stream, because we've already been rambling a whole bunch about stuff. I think what I would like to touch upon is that exact thing, which is that I think that ReZero's strength as a story is the fact that a lot of it has to do with the personal feelings of characters, despite how complicated all this is. Like, we know all this deep lore and whatnot, but like at the end of the day, the characters are always at the center stage. It's never the mystery, it's never the world, it's never just the world. It's always the characters in relation to the world. You know, it's very much so how they deal with things, how they overcome feelings and emotions and their own problems and issues, and overcome quote unquote sin. You know, that's sort of how it is. You know,
everybody cried for Golden Tiger. We all had that. You all remember, chat. Oh man, no, it's just really great. It's really good.
Yeah. And I could talk, me and Wolf will probably at one point talk about how the Synarch Bishops, we'll get that later, I think, because we'll get to see more and more of the Synarch Bishops and their personalities in particular.
Right now we have to focus, for us, more anime only is now Dragon.
Yeah,
Link.
we're not far enough yet for me and Gold to go really in depth about the Archbishops themselves as characters.
Yeah, the Dragonborn chat. Dragonborn is here.
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? We know of only one other dragon, Volcanica, This is the
Volcanic.
second dragon we've seen, and that's
good point.
And that's an important thing, considering how revered the dragon seems to be in the world.
Also,
if there's a
the
second
fact
dragon,
that,
it's like, wow.
so wait, no, you guys just blew my mind for a second. So if we have the association with her basically kind of having with the goat thing and like being like the devil in a sense.
Yes,
the whole
perfect.
part of
I was
it
about
is-
to mention this.
yes, we have the part that would be that she is almost in a sense like an antichrist. So she is the false dragon as
It's
she's
the
claiming
antithesis
out.
to the god of.
If she is actually part of the royal family, which is associated with the dragon, she is the, fallen,
She's
almost
kicked out of, well, not kicked out of the house, but she's specifically the one that is not looked
Yes.
upon fondly because how cruel she is. Oh, you guys just
associate, which you can associate with Lucifer,
Yes.
the one who becomes Satan in Christian mythology. Now, this is where we get into the dragon itself and the kingdom of Lagunica. The dragon is the deity of the kingdom, like it's worshipped, it's worshipped as its god. It's literally the god in Lagunica. So yeah, that connection is even stronger there with Capella being the sort of antichrist Satan-like figure as the goat.
And
know what
poor
I'm also
Sektic
interested in
chased
now?
him behind a waterfall. Perhaps.
I'm also interested now. We haven't so Felt is specifically not in this situation at the moment. So I'm now very curious on what the factor of her outside of just Reinhardt might solve the problem, so we have to keep him out. What might her association now be with this character? Because she would technically be, if we're going with the, I don't know where she would be placed if you're thinking about like we were going off the mythology part of it, but she is actual royal family as far as we're aware. So it's just interesting. I find that quite interesting. Huh. There's just so much depth you can do with this.
Yeah. Now we have confronting a member of the royal family. Felt is now seeing, maybe one of her ancestors. Who knows?
Possibly.
Which
yeah.
might be the reason why their hair colors are the same, perhaps.
And eye color.
And eye color.
I didn't realize the eye color. It was so good. That's a double one. Oh gosh. We could. I was gonna say we can keep going.
I think this is where we need to kind of end here. I think we've rambled on.
We're gonna keep going if Hollow doesn't show up.
I've went into the kitchen, made rice, defrost bacon, prepped a meal to make, came back in here. Y'all are still going.
Yep. Okay. We carried the
it's all
stream
good.
long.
That's why I said the marathon would have been good for today.
Yeah, we'll ramble more and more in time. I'm sure.
Quick
once we
little
get further
PSA.
along the story.
Quick little.
Jay, which sin are you? Give us your personality. We're gonna go over it in specific detail for 2 hours.
Quick little PSA from my mod team, who's currently losing their minds. If you guys spoil anything, we're gonna hide you from channel.
I'm so sorry. We did this to ourselves, speculating about stuff.
Well, no.
No, but you can still behave yourself.
Oh no, it was beforehand.
Okay.
Just so you know, if you're hidden from the channel, you can no longer comment anything. I don't see anything you do, and pretty much, I don't know. I don't know when we're gonna unhide you, but my mod team is legit losing their minds. So please don't spoil any future implications, even mentioning characters or, push, nudge kind of stuff. Yeah, just,
don't wink.
Just
We're
let the
smart enough to
experience
put things
happen.
together. Yeah.
You tell people the experience is just gonna lesser their experience. They're just gonna be upset with you. So
Yeah.
there's no point in doing
Implication is not cheeky.
Kyle's, you're a soldier.
We know. Yeah, we know.
Thank you.
You bastards.
I told Kyle to say what the fuck in a Petra voice.
What the fuck? You
Yeah.
asshole!
Yeah, that's
Someone
that's
call
Now I
her.
have to read ahead.
Petra is more in the
call
chat,
around.
boys.
Oh no.
Oh my god, we're gonna make Kyle's a reader before.
Kyle's
she's
is
gonna-
not even an anime only. She's a reader at this point. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I had to look up a character to see if they were a fucking spoiled character, and I learned too much, you fuckers.
I bet you did. Literally looking at the ReZero wiki is a landmine. You cannot do it. It's like impossible.
Avoid the fucking wiki at all costs. All costs. So many spoilers.
I will say
Literally
this.
just like, oh.
I like you guys DMing me, but if you do as one user did and send me a key pinnacle point from chapter 70 and beyond, I am blocking you, not unblocking you. Please don't send me spoilers either. That's very not
Give me what that
modern.
was. What did they spoil you about? I want to know.
No, but just shout out to my mod team for keeping things sane. And you guys held 200 concurrent for quite some time with that discussion, so it's all good. Yeah, just
Hey guys, follow me on my Discord. I don't have one. Plugging. All right, go ahead.
Nice.
My 5 seconds of fame.
We do have a reading tomorrow. We're going to be reading chapter 34 through 36, I believe. I suppose. I'm guessing. Oh, a bunch of people left. Holy shit. Okay. Okay, I gotta talk to Jace after this. But yeah, good job to everybody on the readings today. Thank you for all the donors. We almost got 20% on the first day, which is fucking nutty. But yeah, we'll see you guys in...
expected of this community.
Yeah, pretty much. I'll see you guys in tomorrow's stream. I think What's up?
One last thing to mention. I've just been DM'd about it. Someone has said that they believe I spoiled the fact that Flugel was a sage, which is, I will say, not true. To my knowledge, it has been mentioned that the tree in the anime was called the Sage's Great Tree, or Flugel's Great Tree. And I believe it was meant, I think Rem kind of elaborated a bit on it.
Yeah,
so I will say now, I did not spoil that, I promise you.
Alright, so I think we'll end off right then and there. I think my mods need a break. So, tomorrow, if you decide to join in for the reading, just enjoy the reading, hype up the cast. When we do these discussions, it's mainly because some of us have not read ahead yet. Hint, hint, holographic. So please don't, future implications, please don't ruin the story for us.
Before we go, show Pabu's sketch in Sketches. Her little Minerva.
Where?
Yeah, look at the sketches. See her.
Oh my god, she's cute. I should have had this up.
Yeah, get that one up.
Alright, let's throw this up for the last 5 then. And I need to give Kyle's like a Purple Heart medal or some shit. After
she's a veteran now.
Yeah, Kyle's been in war.
She's seen hell.
You fuckers!
I know hell.
Yep.
Hey, you know what you guys just did? Now Ram and Frederica are gonna get yelled at her because she's swearing. Look what you did, Chad. Look.
Who cares?
If only you'd given me mod privileges, then I could have helped.
If only
out.
you could type in chat.
Shut the fuck up. I figured it out. My YouTube was glitching, but I figured it out.
Oh, YouTube's app is bad? Gasp. Just on my shade.
The amount of messages deleted today was funny. Oh god, why? Alright, well, we're gonna leave that up. Remember to like this video just to get on the algorithm a bit more, get it to more people. If you do feel gracious enough to come tomorrow, give a donation, become a member, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for that too. I think the stream's gone on long enough for today. So, we're gonna end it off here. Just Jesus Christ, Wolf, your lore. Please make a video, please.
Yeah.
Do a video on it, my guy.
Commission that Ram and just talk. We will listen.
Let me edit it. I'll edit it.
I don't want you to get spoiled.
I'll read ahead, then I'll edit it.
No, it's.
We'll watch it after.
All right. But to all the
we'll read at the speed of sound.
To all the VAs that were on today's project, good fucking job to all of you. Tomorrow things are only going to kick up more, so do make sure that you join for that one. This has been Holographic and the crew. We'll see you guys in tomorrow's live stream reading. Have a great day, everyone. Saradewa. Jane. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.